I want to give out free Patreon memberships to people that can't afford it. Like if you enjoy the show and you want to be part of the Expert and the Idiot Patreon and the Discord, and you can't afford it because I understand stuff is expensive and life is difficult and we all are, working hard and everything, like just hit me up and I'd love to do that.
I see it in my monitors, they, whether you want to debate, it's just socialization and trust versus emotional understanding. Sure, you could totally debate that. And again, one of the things that we need to learn more about, but like I'm, especially for some of my monitors, I know that they enjoy my presence and I know that they look forward to me interacting with them.
Today's episode is brought to you in part by Cold-Blooded Caffeine, a small batch coffee company built around reptiles, conservation, and really good coffee. Founded by Trey Hall and McKendrick Dunn, Cold-Blooded Caffeine connects roasted to order coffee with real-life conservation in coffee-producing countries. 5% of every bag sold goes directly to conservation efforts, and I'm excited to announce that the Expert and the Idiot podcast now has its own custom coffee blend. Every penny from my profits from that blend will be donated to indigo conservation through the Orion Society. If you want great coffee that actually supports the animals and ecosystems we all care about, check out coldbloodedcaffeine.com. This episode is brought to you by Soul Reptile. Soul Reptile is a boutique, direct-to-consumer lighting and husbandry company focused on bringing the latest reptile physiology and lighting science into the hobby. They're the creators of the Vision LED, the most powerful UVA1 LED available for reptile lighting. They also produce precisely tuned near-infrared systems designed for specialized animals, including invertebrates. If you're serious about replicating natural sunlight and dialing in your animal's environment, Soul Reptile is pushing that science forward. Soul Reptile, the science of the sun. This episode is brought to you in part by ExoTerra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use ExoTerra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, ExoTerra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. ExoTerra, make your reptiles feel at home. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show. Episode 129 of The Expert and the Idiot. Today I'm going to be talking to Mason Barnes. Before I bring him in, this is a little different than the usual setup for an episode. Normally we jump right into it, but I wanted to do some quick housekeeping. Chewy is continuing to sponsor the show, along with ExoTerra, Cold-Blooded Caffeine, and Soul Reptile for all your reptile lighting needs. And real quick on Chewy, I now have a link. So if you need to buy anything from Chewy at all, please help out the show, support the show. Go down into the description of this video, and you can grab that link from there and use that to get everything you need from Chewy. This episode is brought to you by Chewy. Most people think of Chewy for dog and cat food. But if you keep reptiles, you should absolutely be using them too. Chewy carries everything from all the brands you trust, like ExoTerra, Arcadia, ZoomEd, and everything in between. Live feeders to frozen rodents, enclosures, substrate, heat lamps, thermostats, water bowls, misters, and more, all in one place, shipped straight to your door. Sign up for Chewy Plus today, free for 30 days. You get free shipping, 5% rewards, and exclusive offers. I use Chewy, and you should too.
Sorry, we literally had a house fire, and I don't know, like, I changed out all the batteries, I reset the circuit. Nothing has gotten those fire alarms to stop going off. It's so frustrating.
Oh my God. How do you live with that?
I don't know. I'm literally just going to order all new fire alarms for the house and do that because it's gotten ridiculous.
Dang. Well, yeah, we should get into that because I want to hear that story.
For sure.
So how did the house fire happen? What happened?
I had a monitor lizard break out of its enclosure and knock a heat lamp into another enclosure that was open top. It was for turtles, and knocked the heat lamp into the substrate, and substrate caught fire. We were 2 hours away from home too. So we got home and heard the fire alarms, and all of our dogs were like under the table shaking and screaming, and like how the house was so thick filled with smoke that like from my front door to my back door you couldn't see. It was every single room in the house was filled with smoke. It was ridiculous. Thank God. It could have been way worse, but
jeez.
Yeah,
did you have
nuts.
to did you have to like rip out drywall and stuff? Was there like smoke damage?
That I know of, no. The smell lingered for maybe a week, but it's gone completely now. The only like problem that we're still dealing with from it is the smoke alarms. Like, regardless of brand new batteries and resetting the circuit and whatever, they just don't stop beeping. So,
man. Now, what about how many monitors do you have altogether? It's a lot.
Yeah, probably. So 7 lace monitors.
Oh my God, dude.
2 yellow-headed water monitors, 6 Spencer's monitors. Not all of those are mine. Some of those are here on breeding loan. Some dwarf species. I've got some black-headed monitors, some Storrs monitors. What else? Pygmy mulgas. I have some white-spotted tree monitors too, but those are going to a buddy of mine.
Wow.
Lots of stuff. So,
dude, talk to me about the lace monitors. I mean, they're super interesting to me. Obviously, they're an Australian species, which is super cool. They're big, they're venomous, which all monitors are venomous, right?
Yeah. So now we know that all monitors have venom glands. It's not the same as like a front fang venomous snake, but they all can produce venom to a degree. Some, I mean, we don't know, as far as I know, we don't know much beyond that. I've heard different people say that certain species seem to inflict more potency than others. Like tree monitors, I've heard their bite is more venomous than something else. Same with the African rock monitors, black throats, white throats. I've heard their bites are pretty bad. I've actually heard of people getting sick from their bites.
Wow.
And then I've been bit by a tree monitor before, and I've been bit by a lace monitor before. And I can tell you, like, as far as throbbing pain, the tree monitor was worse.
Really?
So there's no getting around a lace monitor bite. Like, you know, you get over it. It's fine. But, yeah, their teeth are just, it's like a mouthful of razor blades. So
jeez.
I've got scars on my hand and whatever. But the thing with them is like, it's a clean slice bite. I've been bit 3 times now by them. And every time it's been, don't get me wrong, it hurts, but it's like, it's not anything super, like honestly, the cleaner the bite, the less it hurts. So, yeah, they're really, really good at making clean cuts. I'll tell you that.
How did those bites happen? Do you look back and is it something that could have been avoided, or was it unavoidable? I mean, I've been bit by my fair share of snakes, and every time I always do sort of a post-mortem on the bite, and just, just mentally, internally, I'm sitting there thinking like, God, if I would have just, been more careful, if I would have watched here, if I wouldn't have been doing two things at once, it wouldn't have happened.
For sure. Yeah. No, I mean, I've never been aggressively bit. Like, my monitors aren't aggressive. They're not even really defensive towards me. Like, they're all really, really good. And honestly, even a defensive monitor, typically their first reaction is not to bite. Their first reaction is usually to tail whip you, or just run away. But anytime I've gotten bit, it's been a food response thing, usually. And it's avoidable for sure. I mean, one time my worst bite that I got was I had reached into an enclosure because I wanted to interact with her. She's my adult female belle that I got. And she, like, I didn't even really think anything of it, but she thought she was getting fed. So her back was turned to me. But the second she saw my hand off the corner of her eye, she like completely flipped around, and I pulled away. But I don't know if you could see it. That's the scar from that.
Oh yeah.
She got me there. And then she got me on both of these knuckles. This knuckle for sure has some sort of something going on in the knuckle, but yeah, it's usually it's food related to in some way.
What's up with your knuckle? Is it like stiff?
I don't know if it's scar tissue or what, but like I can bend it to like there. I can fully extend it. I didn't lose any range of motion, but I can bend it to about there before it starts to hurt, to clench it.
Wow.
So it hurts a little bit when I'm here. Not unbearable. It's just like uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's kind of, you'll probably have that for the rest of your life. I did something to my thumb like 10 years ago, and it's still jacked up. It still hurts. Like the base kind of knuckle, I guess it would be the second knuckle down on your thumb. I had it, I at my facility, we had to put cones out, and I had my thumb in the center of a cone stupidly.
Oh yeah.
And I went to wing it, and it didn't come off my thumb, and it just like whipped back and like snapped my thumb back, and Ooh. It's like permanently jacked. And I'm a lefty too. It doesn't, like you said, the like range of motion is fine, but it's definitely painful. Yeah.
So that sounded like it sucks. I'm a lefty too.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah. There's not many of us out there.
I know.
Or so I'm told. It's supposed to be like 10% of the population, I think, but I don't know. I feel like I meet a lot of lefties.
I don't know what it is, but there seems to be a lot of them, at least in the reptile world.
Ooh, maybe it's like a neurodivergent thing.
I know. Totally could be.
Life as a lefty is hard, especially when it comes to like, what are the worst things? Golf clubs, archery, bolt action rifles, and scissors.
Yep. I think. That's a solid list. The one that always got me in school was when you're writing as a lefty and like you get the ink smear on your hand because.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, I think you hit most of the points there. So.
Dude, scissors are legitimately painful because you're using right-handed person scissors and you're trying to jam your fingers through the holes. It doesn't work at all.
Yep. That's how it goes.
It's so rude. Yeah, man. Are you full blown left-handed? Do you do like everything with your left hand? That's how I am too.
Yeah.
I knew some weirdos though that would write left-handed, but they would shoot with the right hand, which I was like, Weird. That doesn't make any sense. That makes no sense. I mean,
power to the people that can do that. That's cool, but no, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah. Writing is really terrible. My hand cramps up because I'm always trying to get up out of the ink as I'm going through.
Yeah, exactly.
Life as a lefty. It's not easy. Not easy at all.
The things we deal with.
I know. So now tell me about the tail whips, because I've seen some tail whips in videos, and like Slinky and I've seen, some of these social media star, monitors whipping people on the legs.
Yep.
And oh man, it looks brutal when it happens.
It is. I'm not like, it's just part of their natural defense mechanism. They're, like I said, they're going to tail whip you before they'll bite you. It's especially the bigger the monitor, though, it feels like you're being smacked with a belt. Like it's their tails are way stronger than, like, I mean, if you've had monitors before, or other monitor keepers can kind of explain this too, but it's like their tail is just solid muscle. And so like I said, it's their first method of defense. They're used to doing it usually. So they're like, one time I had to manhandle my male yellow-headed water monitor, Varanus Cumming Eye. And he's not, I didn't raise him from a baby. He's not like super friendly. He's not awful, but he's not super friendly with me. Female's great. I raised her from a baby. I can pick her up. She'll come right up to me. She's a puppy. But the male, one time I had to manhandle him, and he ended up, like, I picked him up, and he's one that, like, will more eagerly charge me than some of the other lizards I have will. So I'm a little bit more hesitant with him to, like, full on scoop him under the chest or whatever, because he'll just, if he wants to, he could just swing around and get me. So, like, I'll use gloves with him, and I'll kind of scoop him up as best I can and control him with the base of the tail. And one time I had him, and he swung around to bite me. And so he was maybe, he wasn't super high off the ground, but I essentially just dropped him. I was like, nope. Like, I pulled away, whatever. He swung around to try to get me. But on the way down, he whipped me with his tail and got me right, like, in the midsection, knocked the wind out of me. I was like, whoa, sitting there like, man, I've never been tail whipped in that part of my body before. It is what it is. That's just their natural defense mechanism. I'm not going to knock it. It is what it is. But I still love, obviously the bigger the lizard, the more equipped they come. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. They're just so cool to me.
Yeah, they are, man. I really want to get a black dragon, but the responsibility there terrifies me. Like, I feel like, I feel like I work way too much. Like, I work long hours, and I'm often working overtime, and I would want an animal that would be relatively tame, because I put the time in with it.
Right.
So I feel like maybe I'm just at a point in my life where it can't happen, just because I can't put that work in, that socialization, and then I would end up with an animal that I don't really want, because I want something that would be something I could interact with.
Right. Well, the cool thing with monitors in that regard, like, if you got one as a baby that was social, or at least relatively, not evil, as long as it was manageable, you could, like, I mean, there's weeks where I'm super busy and I can't necessarily go in and interact with my monitors to the full extent that I'd like to. But their demeanor does not change, at least in my experience. Like, once they're tame, in my experience, unless you give them a reason not to trust you again. Like, my male Cumming Eye, if I have to manhandle him and restrain him, that's going to set us back. But like my big male lace monitor Astro, he came to me pretty social, and I'm convinced that animal does not have a defensive bone in his body. Like, there's nothing that I could do that would reverse his trust of humans. He's just like that. So they, basically where I was getting at was if you could put some time in or got one that was already fairly social and didn't have to put as much time in, chances are if you were able to get it to a point where it completely trusted you, you would have to do something then to break that trust. Like if you go a week or two without holding it or, whatever, that's not going to do it, at least in my experience. So
yeah. Do you keep outside at all?
Currently, no. I'd like to start. I grew up in California. That would have been a good place to do it. I've moved to Arizona after that, a couple of years back, and then was there for like 9 months. Another good place for Australian stuff. And then now I live in Tennessee. So I could do it here part of the year, probably a good majority of the year, to be honest with you. But I would need something. It would have to be like an indoor-outdoor hybrid for winter.
Why don't you move to Florida, bro?
I've thought about it. I literally was just telling my parents 3 days ago, because they moved to Tennessee too. They were in California. They moved here. And I told them literally like 3 days ago, I'm like, I don't know why, but for months I've just had the random urge to pick up and move to Florida. Why? Don't know.
You should do it.
I've thought about it. Honestly, who knows? Maybe I'll do it. We'll see.
Dude, you know what would be really cool? So I'm on a half acre.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of that is like 2 lots for sale. So
really?
if you could buy that between the two of us, we'd have a full acre and we could have monitor cages out there and outdoor snake cages. Dude, like think how cool it would be. We could have a facility. You know what I'm saying? Like it would be epic.
That'd be
somebody's got to do it.
Where are you at in Florida?
I am about 90 miles south of Tampa.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. On the coast. It's a, honestly, I'm really happy with where we are. There was a point in my life where I kind of felt stir crazy and like I wanted to move. But being able to keep diamond pythons outside is epic. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a quiet area that we're in. It's a growing area, but it's quiet. That the house values are stable. And if I want to go to Daytona, it's 5 hours. Tampa's an hour and a half. Naples is like 45 minutes south. I can go to the Everglades in like 3 hours. The Keys are 5 hours. So it's kind of a good spot to be where
for sure.
Basically everything in the state is a moderate drive that's not going to like drive you insane.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that sounds great. I've been to Florida like a few times. And I loved it every single time I've went. So I don't know. I've thought about it. Maybe I'll do it.
Yeah. The problem is there's so many annoying people moving here. And that's like the biggest problem right now. I really wish it would stop. There's just a lot of annoying people moving here, and like a lot of good people. A lot of people that are my friends have been leaving because they're like, oh, it's too expensive, because everybody from New York is moving here with their New York pension and ruining the economy. But it is what it is.
Florida, I think, over the last few years has been one of the most moved to states in the country, if I remember
you don't
right.
have to remind me, man.
Yeah. Hey, Tennessee's one of them too.
A drive that going to Sarasota used to be like easy. It would take like 35 to 40 minutes. And now it's like an hour.
Jeez.
No matter what. Routinely my commute to work, which should be 35 minutes, is an hour to an hour and 15 minutes.
Jeez.
And it's just, it's just like we have too much infrastructure that is not built for the amount of people that have moved here. The interstate is just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But
no, I get it. That's how, growing up in California, I'm used to like ridiculous traffic. Like I grew up in the high desert. And then when I was like 12 or 13, we moved to Orange County, which is like smack dab in the middle of like LA and San Diego. So I was there for probably 10, 12 years, something. And beautiful area. But Dude, the traffic was ridiculous. Like, absolutely insane. And then when we moved to Tennessee, again, another super like popular moving to state in the country right now. The roads here can't handle the amount of people that are moving here. So same thing. Yeah. If you leave for work at 7 a.m, there's one freeway that everyone takes that connects everything from like all through where we're at, which is like 45 minutes south of Nashville. It's called Columbia. But there's one freeway that connects everything all the way up to Nashville. So
yeah,
that freeway is like, if you're trying to go to work at 7 a.m, plan for an extra half hour, 45 minutes it'll take you probably.
Yeah. That's basically like where I'm at, you know, but and the thing about Florida too, is we have an on season and an off season.
Yeah.
You know, when everybody comes here, all the snowbirds come down here, and yeah, it's terrible. And like you try to go to the beach and all you see is out of state tags everywhere. And it's like, you bastards are ruining our country. You're ruining our state. You're destroying it.
Yeah. Dude, I get it.
Yeah. But I want you here. So if you move here, that would be dope. That would be awesome, man.
Honestly, dude, send me the listings for that property. I'll look at it. Like, that's where I'm at. I'm at the point where I'm just like, you know what? If it happens,
dude, that would be so epic if you were just like so nonchalant, just like, we're going to Florida. We're going to live next door to Adam.
Yeah. It could happen. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll send you some listings, man.
Cool.
There's even on the same street, there's houses available.
Really?
You know, and oh yeah, it's but it's just a lot of woods, you know, and that's what allowed us to buy the other quarter acre next to us. And that's where I plan on having my building at some point.
Yeah.
You know, is actually having like a 16 by 40 building there where I can just have all my snake cages, recording studio, everything right in there. So I don't have to bother my family or, you know, hey guys, keep it down, I'm recording, you know, just go in there, shut the door, and it's, you know, my safe space.
For sure. No, that's the dream. That's kind of where I'm at too, is like, I've had a facility before. I rented in California, and I'll never do that again. Too much money, just like burning money, literally. But I have everything in my house now, and like converted my garage into a giant monitor room. That's where all the big guys are. Wow. Insulated the garage door or whatever. But having a dedicated facility, and like you said, you know, podcast studio, all that sort of stuff that's like just in its own space, and like not infinitely expandable, but kind of that vibe, you know what I mean? Like just kind of being able to do whatever you want with it. Wherever I do buy land, that will be the plan for sure.
Imagine having smoke detectors that don't beep all day, dude.
Dude, tell me about it. Speaking of, you haven't heard one since, right?
I haven't heard one. Yeah, you nailed it, man.
Okay, good. It's
rid of
the one in the garage, man. Where the fire started. That's the one that, yeah.
Yeah, it was good though. I got to do a little housekeeping. You know, I'm trying to, the whole reptile community is really incredible to me.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I've made so many friends, dude. And like you get to a point where like people you don't even know that well are just automatically your friend because you have such a huge thing in common because it's a lifestyle.
For sure.
Know, it very much is a lifestyle. And I wouldn't say that it defines you as a person clearly, because you look at like the diversity of reptile keepers it's so vast. It's incredible. Right. So like, it's not a defining quality, but it's like common ground that as soon as you meet somebody that's a reptile keeper, you just have that in common. Even if they're, you know, like I'm primarily into snakes, you're into monitors, but it's still so fascinating, right? Like I was looking up lace monitors and I saw that like the female, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I read that the females will like lay their eggs in active termite mounds to incubate them.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so cool.
I know. Yeah. They're smart, man. basically their thought process there, from what I understand, is their eggs incubate a really long time. Like they can go up to literally like 300 days for a clutch. I've got a clutch incubating right now that's on like day 246 or something crazy. They incubate a long time. And so out in the wild where there's, obviously seasons that are going to be impacting directly mid incubation, their thought process there is if they can dig into a termite mound, which is already temperature regulated at about, that 84, 86 degree range where they prefer to lay their eggs. If they can dig into a termite mound and the termites essentially regulate their own heat, regardless of what the weather is outside, the inside of the mound is going to be regulated, whether it's being cooled or heated or whatever, based on termite activity and stuff like that. So, they'll nest directly into a giant termite mound and cover it back up, and the termites will like encapsulate it essentially, and then they'll hatch and they'll do it all over again. A lot of Australian monitors do that.
Crazy.
And then some Indonesian ones do too.
That's bananas, dude. So that's like that they understand that that the weather is going to be changing and that it's not going to be consistent.
Yep.
So they just find a place that is temperature regulated, that has a fairly consistent temperature.
Yeah.
And just deposit there. And like the termites don't eat them or anything. And you got to imagine that they're probably actually maintaining around the eggs. That's so crazy.
I know. Yeah, it's nuts. Like reptiles in general, plenty of different snakes. Diamond pythons are super smart. Boelen's pythons are super smart. Monitors are super smart. All those sorts of animals. And
hold on, I want you to tell me why you feel diamond pythons are smart, because I love diamond pythons, and if you want to talk about them, I want to hear it.
I mean, you keep them. I haven't kept them myself. I've just worked with them in the past, and they just always had like a disposition about them that reminded me of like a Boelen's or a scrub. They just seemed like a step above standard carpet, if that makes sense. And don't get me wrong, carpet pythons are smart too, but I think I'm a little bit biased because I've been bit so many times by the damn things. But
diamonds, unless they're turned on for food, are not very inclined to bite. Now, but if they're turned on, you can tell, and it's like, okay, let's just keep that head away from me.
Yeah. Yeah, and the bite sucks. I mean, some of the worst bites I've ever taken have been from like mid-size snakes. Like everyone, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've never been bit by like a Burma or a retic or something like that, or an anaconda, anything big. But like some of the worst bites have been like carpet pythons and emerald tree boas for me. Like those have just been the worst. They hurt worse than the monitor bites do, in my opinion. The monitor bites can be more, damage, but the snake bites to me like have been more painful than the monitor bites. That's obviously not the general case. Usually the monitor bites are worse, but to me it's been the reverse.
Yeah. So I kind of want to get into cage design. Yeah. Like how do you, especially for larger monitors, like how do you approach designing a cage for these, complex, they seem very aware, very, just like they have a consciousness, like they have a level of intelligence to them, that, like how do you approach giving them everything they need within a fairly small area, right? Like it's a very, very large animal, that, you're keeping multiple of the species. So how do you design the cage so that way it's enriching for them and gives them everything that they need to thrive and survive?
For sure. Yeah, no, with monitors, in my experience and general experience from other keepers, like regardless of what the species is, they will use every square inch of the space you give them. So like you said, they're so intelligent and they need some sort of mental stimulation most of the time. So like for me, some of the key things in designing their enclosure is giving them a lot of things to do. Obviously you can intervene and give them like, say, a slow feeder for dogs and put some, whole prey items in there and have them like sniff through and dig it out. They will. And it's fun. For tree monitors, you can even give them like a test tube or a vial, put some crickets in there, and they'll stick their hand in it and pull out the cricket and eat it. Like they're really, really, really smart. And I've seen my pygmy mulga monitors do the exact same thing, stick in their head or their hand into like a tiny little hole in a piece of wood in their enclosure and pull out a cricket and eat it. But with them, it's like basically any sort of surface that is not the roof should be usable to a degree. So, making the walls climbable, whether that means custom ledges that you build yourself, or you get universal rock background or something that they can climb, or you put cork bark on everything, or something that like makes the surface usable, and then giving them little like, corners in the enclosure that, little holes where they can kind of go in and explore, or deep substrate they can dig in, leaf litter, let them dig through the leaf litter, tons of branches, multiple different dimensions and angles that you can, basically make the space as usable as humanly possible and as stimulating as possible, to where they constantly have something to do if they choose to do it. Like some people will even take, say for a savanna monitor, for example, obviously super, super common. Most of them are not cared for properly, but even with them at 4 feet long or whatever it is, you could take their enclosure and take, a cup of calcium dusted crickets and throw it in there and let them chase them around at 4 feet long. No one really thinks to do stuff like that, but they'll totally do it, and they'll have a blast doing it. So, like with the lace monitors, they're semi-arboreal. They, most of the time will be elevated somewhere, at least in my experience. So a lot of climbing space for them is super, super important. I'm actually in the process of redoing every single cage that I own. So brand new everything. We get PVC out here super, super cheap. I can get it for like $50 a sheet. So I'm like rebuilding every single cage, making every single cage bigger, completely redoing backgrounds, going out. Like obviously there's a bunch of wood here. So, I'll go and get fallen trees and whatever and cut them up and put them in the enclosures. And
hell yeah.
So yeah, just a lot of like anything that you can think of to make the enclosure more 3-dimensional. For them is super important. And then as big as you can possibly go. Like with monitors, there's not really like, you can't go too big.
Yeah.
That's part of the struggle, actually, like as someone who like is actively breeding monitors. I don't breed very many big species. I breed 2 big species and I'm adding a 3rd. But like I have baby yellow-headed water monitors available right now, but like I've gotten to the point where like I'm like I won't just sell them to anyone who asks. Like I'm not I'm so like over the like just flexibility of people just thinking that it's okay to like buy something and decide that 2 weeks later you want to trade it for something else because you're bored. And I mean, don't get me wrong, we've all done stuff like that as far as like getting an animal and then realizing it's not for you and then maybe selling it or putting like that's different to me. If you get an animal with intent to keep it, then and it just ends up not being for you, I feel like that's different. But there's so many people out there that will just get stuff for the sake of having it and then trading it off to another home. And I'm sick of like seeing animals that are just jump from home to home to home, and each home along the way is just shit. So like I'm selective about who I sell to, or at least would like to know a little bit of information about the care or what their intention is with the animal before I will sell an animal to them. But I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, with monitors, like
well,
they live a long
I think
time
they're a big responsibility, right?
For sure.
Like I think that's where you were going, is that it's just, they need a ton of space. They need attention. They have dietary requirements.
Yep.
They have very specific heat requirements, right? Like they need the ability to really heat up, but they also need that gradient.
Yep.
And are you do you kind of subscribe to the vertical gradient where, you know, you give them the ability to go higher and get hotter, but then also go lower and get cooler? Or do you like it where it's a horizontal gradient?
Depending on the species, I'll do both. Typically, though, I find that with monitors, the vertical gradient is better just because they're so active. Like I said, you can't give a monitor too much space. They will use every square inch of it that you give them. So when it comes to designing a cage, on most of my cages, I have multiple lights, whether it be multiple lights on one basking spot, multiple lights on multiple basking spots, depending on how many animals are in that cage. Typically for the larger monitors, you'll need multiple bulbs on one basking spot anyways, because you want that heat to spread so they're not getting burned and focusing all the heat in one area, trying to sit there for 2 hours trying to heat their body up. But typically I find that it's easier to do a vertical gradient depending on the species. In a 4x2x2 for a pygmy mulga monitor, a vertical gradient is a little bit more challenging, obviously, because you only got 2 feet of space vertically. But like on one of my pygmy mulga monitor breeding enclosures, I've got heating on both sides. And I've basically got it to where the basking spots are elevated. They're also another semi-arboreal species. So basking spots are obviously elevated. On one side, the bulb is smaller. I think it's like a 50 watt or something. And then on the other side, it's a 75. And so, you know, there's also a lot of air movement and airflow in the cage, so it doesn't get super hot. But, you know, basking spots 135-ish. And then on the other side, it's another basking spot that's maybe 120 or whatever, giving them kind of like options. And then under one of the basking spots is their nest box. So their nest box can stay heated around that like mid 80s kind of section. And then they can retreat under certain things, or even directly under the basking spot. It's not getting hotter than, 84 there. So there's spots they can get into the 70s, there's spots they can get into the 80s, and then all the way up to 135, 140.
Wow. Yeah, that's hot.
Yeah.
What are the wattage bulbs that you're using again?
Typically, it's all over the place, but typically I'll use a lot of like 100 watt halogens in a lot of enclosures. I'll use a lot of I find that like a 4x2x2, even with unless there's a lot of airflow, those usually will heat up pretty good. So especially if it's PVC, which is what I'm using. So in cages like that, I might go a little bit lower wattage. And I like halogens. The halogens typically will get hotter though for the wattage that you're getting versus just a regular incandescent bulb or something like that. So sometimes I'll go down on the wattage, like maybe doing a 50 instead of a 75.
Yeah.
Or even a 50 instead of 100 sometimes, depending on again, if there's 2 basking spots in the enclosure where I'm heating a nest box with some sort of overhead heating element, then I'll lower the wattage a little bit so it doesn't overheat the enclosure.
Does anybody do maternal incubation with monitors?
I don't know. So the parents won't. Obviously, they don't. It's not the same as like a python that'll wrap around the clutch and protect them.
Yeah.
Monitors will. Most species, not all, but most species do get like nest defensive. Where they'll sit there and they'll protect the nest. For how long, I don't know. I can't imagine that they're sitting there protecting the nest like a crocodilian would. So they're probably there for a few days or a week and then they dip, is my assumption. I'm sure you totally could keep the eggs in the nest box where it's sat, and I'm sure they'd hatch. I don't like doing that because monitor eggs are kind of hard to get to begin with for a lot of species. And so I like to remove them and incubate them to make sure that the, potential for error is as minimal as possible.
Sure.
But you probably could. Monitors are really, really good at scouting their nest site long before they lay their eggs, making sure that they're, the temperatures are proper, making sure that the temperatures are proper, like for long durations of time, like lace monitors, for example. A big thing that people deal with in the hobby breeding them is, and really for a lot of monitors, they'll do this, but is the female doesn't like the nest box. A female will, and I've had this happen to me. If a female monitor does not like the nest box, more often than not, she will just simply not lay the eggs. She'll reabsorb them before she ovulates.
Whoa.
Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of instances where they'll still, she'll still ovulate, and she will just either A, scatter the eggs, or B, lay them in some sort of, corner of the cage or some subpar sort of nesting situation, or C, worst case scenario, she retains them. And obviously that's life threatening, but most commonly monitors will kind of scout out their nesting, sometimes like literally months in advance, and make sure that because like lace monitors in the wild, they lay one clutch a year. So that's their shot. They got one shot. And if they don't think that nest is going to be able to withstand, proper egg incubation for the entire duration of the clutch, she just simply won't lay them. Like they're really, really smart in where they deposit their eggs. So I'm sure if you left them in the cage, that you probably could hatch them successfully. You'd probably have a pretty decent hatch rate. Just because they're so particular about where they lay them anyways. But that being said, mom might eat them. If you have more than one together, dad for sure will eat them. That's just, I literally the other day maybe a couple months ago, a month or two ago, so like with my water monitors, typically what I'll do, and this isn't like the proper way to do it, this is just what works for me. Typically you'll remove the male, you'll, introduce the male, you'll let them mate, do their thing, leave them in there for 10, 14 days, whatever it is. And you'll remove him and let her have the space to herself with her nest box and whatever. For my coming eye, I find that my male will hold a grudge against me for much longer than my female will. Again, I didn't raise him, I raised her. So what I do with them is I make it to where I work from home. So I watch them and I watch the interactions. They get along great. And so when they're mating and she's cycling and all that sort of stuff, I'll actually leave them together, and I will remove her as soon as she's done laying the eggs, because coming eye is a species that gets really, really nest defensive, and she will kill him if I don't remove one of them after she lays eggs. So I'll watch her lay the eggs. I'll leave them together, and then I will remove her rather than removing him prior to egg laying. And that's a little bit risky. I wouldn't recommend people do that standardly. But that's just what works for me and the pair that I have. But I will say that did bite me in the ass one time. And it was the first time it had ever happened, but I was taking a nap or something to where I did not have my attention on her. And she had laid the eggs, and he went in there, he can't fit into the hole to the nest box, but he broke the hole and made it bigger. And he went in there and ate the entire clutch of eggs. Oh. They were all good. He ate the entire clutch of eggs. Like, it had to have been as she was laying them, because and she was pissed. I could tell she was pissed. Like, I don't know if she knew he ate them or something, but she was livid.
I bet she did.
Because she backfilled on a nest that was empty. Like, she dug an entire nest, and he stuck his head in there and ate there. And they don't digest the eggshells. So as he pooped them out, I counted he ate 12 eggs. And that's her biggest clutch ever. So, and they all looked good. I got a glimpse of them as she had begun to lay, and they looked good. She's actually never, knock on wood, she's never laid an infertile egg in her life.
Mm.
outside of one clutch that I didn't pair for. That was the only time. But anytime she's been paired, all of her clutches have been good. But yeah, anyways, all that long-winded to say, I'm sure you could incubate inside the cage, but generally I won't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just curious because we have baby alligators at my facility right now.
That's awesome.
And yeah, and the mom is pretty small, and there's a big ass male in the pond. And but mom was sitting there, and one of the babies like swam over and crawled right up her snout and just like laid down and went full sploot on her, or like right between her eyes, like put its little legs out, you know, and it was so cool, dude.
That's awesome.
You know, yeah, I love it when, you know, yeah, I mean, like you said, it seems like most males will consume the young, you know, but it's so cool watching animals with maternal instincts. You know, I think that's so neat.
Well, I think that like potentially to a degree, some varanids might exhibit some of that. I don't think we know enough about them yet. But I think that there's a lot of things in the reptile world that we don't know enough about yet.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting is Alexa Shamshoyan, who she breeds blood pythons.
Yeah.
And other stuff. She does a lot of stuff. But she had a clutch specifically of blood pythons, and she did maternal incubation, and she had a camera on the nest. And as the babies are coming out, mom was like whacking them and making them go back in the egg.
Really?
Like, yeah, like forcing them to go back into the egg. Like, wow. They were like sticking their little head out, and she's like, bam, get back in there. and like making them stay in the egg. It's so crazy. Like, what is going on there? What's driving that behavior?
Right. Yeah, that's super interesting. Now, there's a lot of things that I think that like I'm sure we'll learn them, but I don't think we fully understand the complexity of these animals quite yet. I mean, we just saw that study recently come out about turtles and tortoises having some sort of emotional intelligence and ability. And for the longest time, I mean, even to this day, a lot of people don't think that reptiles have any emotional intelligence at all. But I mean, I'm an advocate of it. I think that they do. I see it in my monitors, you know, whether you want to debate, it's just socialization and trust versus emotional understanding. Sure. You could totally debate that. And again, one of the things that we need to learn more about, but like especially for some of my monitors, I know that they enjoy my presence. And I know that they look forward to me interacting with them. It sounds weird, and it sounds, just out of the ordinary for a lizard, but like my male ace monitor, he'll do random things. Like he'll come up and a lot of people experience this with monitors, but he'll come up and he'll like choose to sit with me, and he'll choose to be near me, whether he's going out and exploring and doing his own thing, or he's right up, on me or whatever. When I walk into the room, he'll scratch at the door to come out. Like, and again, there's arguments both ways. You could totally say that it's just mental stimulation and trust and that sort of bond, or you can say that there's some sort of emotional intelligence there. But in general, I don't think that we fully understand these animals quite yet. So
yeah, no, I don't think it sounds weird at all. And I think that there's people in the hobby that have their own opinions, and they would roll their eyes at everything you just said.
For sure.
And that's fine. But they're entitled to their opinion, and you're entitled to yours, and your anecdotal experience is not invalid, and neither is mine. And I feel that connection with certain animals.
For sure.
Other ones I don't have that connection. But there are certain animals that I have that with. And even, what you just said about, you come in the room and they've been conditioned, and when they see you, it elicits a response and all that. isn't it the same thing when I look at my wife? I've been like, I love my wife. We've been together since 2011, right? You could make the argument that I'm an animal that's been conditioned to see her and think of all the incredible things that we've done and the hardships that we've overcome and the difficulties that we've been through, and, you know, going to get pizza and ice cream and enjoying life and seeing movies and having kids, right? So am I just an animal that's conditioned to see her and have an emotional response, or just have a response in general, or look at her fondly? You know, like
Right.
you could make like where do you draw the line? Where
Right.
do you make that distinction? Where, you know, why do we have to look at animals and view them as so much lesser? Like
Right.
what is the purpose of that? You know, like
Right.
why do you think people do that?
I don't know. I think a lot of people, and obviously this isn't, you know, a super common thing probably within our space, but general population, I think, looks down on animals, is scared of animals, or just doesn't put in the effort to understand them. And again, their complexities, and, you know, we know elephants and we know orcas are two incredibly intelligent animals. We know that they are potentially more emotionally intelligent than humans are. Birds are the same way. They form bonds with their family units that are potentially deeper than the ones that humans form with theirs, or with ours. And I think a lot of the population just generally doesn't understand nature in a lot of ways, and doesn't strive to form that understanding within themselves, because they just don't care. Maybe it's not applicable to their life in any way or whatever. But yeah, I think that obviously us animal lovers have a little bit of a more of a fondness for that. So, and I mean, even down to, like, again, this is another, like, how do we explain this? But I mean, my monitors, if I walk in the room versus somebody else walking in the room, they know the sound of my footsteps versus somebody else's. They know my pace. They know what I sound like. They know what I look like, and they choose to want to interact with me, and they will deny interaction with somebody else. That's not always the case, but that's generally, they recognize and understand me and are comfortable with me than, you know, over somebody else.
I've seen that with one of my snakes.
Yeah.
Nagini, my Argentine boa, is very accustomed to me. She was just knocking on the door, so I opened it for her while we were recording here. And she only does that when I'm in the room. I've talked about this so many times, so I apologize. But if somebody new is in the room, she doesn't do that. She doesn't want to come out. She almost gives like a side-eyed, like watching the person, like trying to figure out like what's going on. Like this is different.
Yeah.
This is not what I'm normally accustomed to. And she can tell, like, if my kids are in the room, that it's not that response, right? But if it's a brand new person, I have to imagine that she can smell them, she can hear them, she can, you know, sense the vibrations of their tone of voice. You know, it's got to be all of these things, right? So yeah, I don't know. Like I don't want to dismiss what could potentially be going on in their head, because we have no idea. And I think it's wrong. Some of it, you know, it's like I feel like a lot of people sort of degrade the intelligence of animals to be able to justify maybe the consumption of animals and things like that. And I eat tons of meat, dude. Like I am not
right there with you.
Yeah, I'm not being a hypocrite here. But I'm saying, like, and I think that some people think this way to justify it, instead of just saying that in order for things to live, things must die. There's no way around that across the board. You know, whether it's plant matter, like a living thing must die to fuel other living things. That's just the way everything has evolved to live.
Yep. No, I mean we see it in the reptile world probably more predominantly than any other sort of sector of pets in general. Is the diets that we feed them. Most of them are carnivores.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that be insects, insectivores or whatever, or full fledged, like my monitors. They get whole prey items and eggs and stuff like that. And again, not knocking anyone that doesn't eat meat or chooses to eat meat or whatever. That's totally an independent decision that people can make. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that it's probably part of it for sure, kind of trying to remove that emotional connection and understanding from animals in general because they don't want to feel bad about eating them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of like people do that with like pest management and,
Yep.
It's a varmint, shoot the possum, shoot the coyote, shoot the, whatever. And it's like, if you have to do that because you have livestock that you need to keep alive, I understand that, but don't degrade the fact that that animal has been here for hundreds of thousands or millions of years and has adapted to survive in this area. And you've just given it the most easy thing to survive at this point in time, and that's what brought it in. It's still, coyotes are incredible animals. They're really cool. I see one, we have one in our neighborhood and I see it and I'm like, that's really incredible. Like seeing this wild dog, this mysterious creature that you never see him.
Yeah.
And then every once every 6 months, we see him like laying in somebody's, empty carport or something, just getting away from the sun.
Yeah. No, they're great. I actually like for dogs specifically, I am like so infatuated with wild dogs that like the dog that I chose to get was a husky because to me, that's like the closest domestic equivalent. But And a lot of people, again, just don't understand that sort of thing. I've been around foxes and raccoons and possums and like a lot of the things that people here would, consider, like you said, vermin of some sort. And they're really smart. They're really fun, a wild animal is a wild animal. They are going to respond accordingly to make sure that they feel protected. And that's part of the problem with like the exotic world in general. I think a lot of people where the misunderstanding lies. That's a whole nother conversation, but we I've got a kinkajou and that's,
whoa, what the hell is a kinkajou?
It's the common name's a honey bear. They're a raccoon family, but they look like a monkey. They've got a long tail and they're arboreal, fruit eater. But we have a kinkajou and she is generally awesome. But I've been bit and that's just part of it. Like a wild animal is a wild animal at the end of the day. We've got X number of domesticated animals and even they have teeth and even they can still bite. But again, I just think it's a large information issue across the board for a lot of the things that we've talked about so far.
Yeah. Kinkajous are adorable.
They're great. That was like when we moved, because like everything's banned in California for the most part, as far as that stuff sort of is concerned. So the second I moved to a state that I had more freedom with what I could potentially keep, I looked into it and I went to facilities and I, interacted with these animals and I've learned very quickly that some are more enjoyable than others to interact with or be around. Some are very intimidating to be in an open cage with. But kinkajous to me, like that was when we moved here. Yeah, see, there's a little baby one right there.
Oh my God, that's an adorable little kinkajou.
They're awesome. They're fun. They're, they're arboreal. They're fruit eaters, frugivores. So like they're also nocturnal. So I feed her at night. That's technically her breakfast is when she wakes up at night. But she, we give her a slow feeder and, make her food a little bit more, she has to work for it a little bit and she gets, a stupid amount of fruits and veggies, and we'll give her hard-boiled eggs, and we'll give her, chicken breast, and we'll give her Missouri monkey biscuits, which is like a primate diet. But you see those claws, they still suck. They have teeth. They've got, incisors that are long, and I've been bit. She freaked out on me once, and she bit me in the neck, and I had 4 little puncture marks in my neck. And wild animal's a wild animal at the end of the day. I actually just saw something recently about maybe it was Tennessee government, or maybe it couldn't have been federal, but something about how they're potentially going to allow the possession without permits of raccoons because they've shown such a level of domestication in some degree.
Of raccoons?
Yeah. Wow, raccoons have.
I didn't know that.
There's a study that came out, maybe I can't even remember, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it was, maybe longer, about how raccoons have essentially been domesticating themselves because they realize that they have better lives when they're around humans. Yeah, see, there's the teeth.
Yeah, look at those teeth. Those are some...
Yeah, they're gnarly.
Substantial teeth.
And they're strong, too. I mean, like, small animal, but should mess you up.
Is that a baby, or do they always have those adorable giant eyes?
That's a baby. Their eyes kind of stay pretty big most of their life, I'd say. I also find that females are cuter than males. Males get they've got slightly different morphological things, about head structure and size and that sort of thing. The girls are cuter than the males
just
are.
like us.
But yeah, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, no, there was a thing where essentially raccoons are domesticating themselves because they realize that they need to or they don't need to, but that their lives are generally better when they're around humans. So they've evolved over the years to exhibit cuter characteristics, like a smaller snout and, stuff like that, that appear cuter to humans so that humans are more tolerant of their presence so that they can go rummage through a trash can and get a meal. It's an actual study. It's an actual thing. They've been.
So that's like unnatural selection, basically, where are people seeing cute raccoons and they're just less likely to blast them with a 22? Because
I guess that's what the study was saying. That
wow.
I mean, obviously they're so prevalent in the U.S. They're everywhere. Every single state you go to, there's a raccoon, or a raccoon population. But yeah, I mean, I've been around raccoons. There's even in the pet trade, there's different colors of raccoons. There's leucistic ones. There's albinos. There's cinnamons. There's blondes. There's solid black ones. Whatever. They're awesome. They're great. They're a lot of fun. They wrestle. They like to play. They're a little bit more rough than a dog is, for sure, but they're still a wild animal. Same thing with our kinkajou. I will say getting them spayed or neutered is like a massive difference maker as far as socialization is concerned when it comes to exotic mammals. So like our kinkajou, she came to us spayed, and don't get me wrong, she still had her outbursts and whatever, and she wasn't super fond of me when we first met, but she loves me now. I mean, I hang out with her every night, and she'll come out and I'll feed her, and she's great. But this is like the 5th tangent that I've gone on. I ramble. Sorry.
No, that's why we're here, buddy. Are they, does he, or does she rather, stay in a cage all day? And is she allowed to free roam, or does she get into too much trouble?
She can have supervised free roaming. She's for sure, raccoon family animal. So her legal name, we don't call her this, but her legal name is Klepto. Because she's again, it's a raccoon family thing. A lot of raccoon family animals actually, if they take something from you and you try to take it back, they'll attack you because they're once it's theirs, it's theirs. You have to barter with them. You have to trade them something that they want more in order to get the item back that you want back. Kinkajous are less like that from what I've seen, but raccoons and coatis are very like, they'll mess you up if you try to take what they have. But yeah, she's in a cage. She takes up almost an entire bedroom. So she's got a 10-foot by 5-foot by 7-foot, like lockable walk-in cage. And then we leave that door open essentially to her cage. She can run all over the top of it. She's got cat trees she goes on. And, like I said, I take her out almost every night and I let her run around the living room after the dogs have gone to bed, and so our dogs want to eat her. So, husky prey drive, but, yeah, we'll take her out and she can run around. She's got a good jump. She'll scale up your body in a matter of 2 seconds if she's running around on the floor. But yeah, she'll get into anything she possibly can. So I got to watch her for sure.
Wow. I want a pet raccoon now. I'm not going to lie.
There's someone who literally lives 15 minutes away from me who breeds them. She's got babies on the ground right now.
No way.
Yeah. They actually are like pretty cool. They're one, again, it's still an exotic. It's still a not domestic animal in the sense of like a dog or a cat, but a spayed or neutered raccoon can be litter trained. It can live free roam in your house. There's always a risk, right? If you got small kids or whatever, probably more risky than it would be a domestic dog as far as having some sort of incident happen. But
I think it would be a great companion for my dog.
Yeah, a lot of people will raise raccoons with their dogs and they get along great. So yeah, it's cool.
All right, this is becoming the exotic mammal podcast.
I know.
Because I found, dude. Okay, so I typed in like pet raccoon Florida, and I found it's a raccoon for sale in Florida for like it's $200. But look at how pretty that is.
Yeah, that looks like a blonde or a cinnamon to me. Probably a blonde.
It's adorable, dude. Look at that big snoot it's got.
They're super cute, man, and they're fun. Like when they're friendly, dude, they're so much fun. They'll wrestle with you, and they enjoy playing with you, and they're so much fun.
Do they have scent glands or anything?
Ooh, I don't know. Probably yes.
Because I've kept ferrets, and I love ferrets, but they're just unbearable.
It's not like that. It's definitely not like that. They probably have some sort of scent glands, but it's not in the sense of like ferrets stinking.
Yeah.
It's not even close. Like raccoons and like kinkajous, they have their body and their hair secretes an oil that's like brown. It's not like you don't feel it, but when you pet her and whatever, if like I pet her a million times in a matter of 5 minutes, I might have a little bit of residue on my hand. And she'll dye she's got a pink cat tree and she's got a gray one, and she'll dye them brown. And,
well, I mean,
but
I have a yellow lab, dude.
Yeah.
They, like you can't wash them too much because their skin gets itchy. So they get a little funky, canines get funky. They have a funky smell, especially the ones that shed. Like they have oily skin. They need that oil there. They were bred to be in the water, it's like, so, I mean, yeah, we do everything we can to minimize the smell. We keep his crate clean, all that, but I don't know, man. I think I might be getting a raccoon now. I don't know.
If they're legal in your state, it's a consideration for sure.
They are. It's requires, I think, a class 2 permit, which is free through the state.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I need to get my stuff done for like breeding snakes in the state anyway. There's some permit with that I have to do.
Yeah.
And, but yeah, super, super interesting. So what kind of raccoons does your friend breed?
She has albinos, grays, which is like the standard. And then she has blondes and cinnamons.
Oh my God. I bet they're adorable.
Dude, they're awesome. I haven't seen a baby, in person, but I actually had helped her out at her facility for a little bit, and would help her do maintenance with all the different animals. And they do bobcats, African servals, ringtail
You can have
lemurs.
a pet bobcat?
Oh, dude, in Tennessee, as long as it's not a front fang venomous snake or a lion or a tiger, you can have almost anything you want here. Like, if I want to have a binturong and a two-toed sloth and a lynx and a African serval, and like, I can have whatever I want here for the most part.
The only issue is, like, do they make like legitimately good pets, or are you going to end up with something where you're like, I'm in too deep? Like, this is
99% of exotic mammals do not make good pets, I would say. Raccoons are like one that I'm like, okay, this could actually become like an actual domesticated animal at some point. But most of them are awful pets. Like, most of them, I would not recommend you keep in your house at all whatsoever. They're just, it's not, most of their lives are not cohesive with human life. And a lot of their lives, if a little kid wants to go up and pet one of these animals and it decides that it doesn't want that kid near it, and like, it's not just a matter of not knowing boundaries and giving warning signs. Like, that could turn into a really bad situation real quick. Again, a raccoon family animals in general, like kinkajous and coatis, are like, I don't know if I'd keep one in my house, but kinkajous, raccoons, like, those are ones that I think are like borderline, like, could potentially be domesticated at some point. As far as like full complete domestication, but 99.9% of exotic mammals I would not personally keep unless I had some sort of dedicated facility that like mimicked some sort of zoological institution, having a dedicated space for them, indoor, outdoor, massive enclosures. And that's the plan. When I have my own property, I'd love to do that, whether it be open to the public or it's, online education or whatever. I would love to do something like that. I just will not do it until I have an absurd amount of space and, honestly, like, staff to help. Like, they're a lot of work. So, and I've been around a lot of, I've got a buddy down in Alabama, Chris Murray. He would be a good person to talk to about all this sort of stuff too. He's got a lot of stuff at his place and they do a great job. And they've got, Eurasian lynx. They've got caracal, they have African servals. They've now bred those twice. They're raising baby African servals. Like, it's a lot of fun. They just had maybe 6 months ago, their two-toed sloth, one of their two-toed sloth females gave birth. They've got binturongs. Binturongs are awesome. They're incredible animals, but they've got a dedicated space for all of them. The stuff doesn't just live in their house. Like, they'll raise the babies in their house. But once they're big enough, they're going in their own spot.
So, and you said you can litter box train a raccoon?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can litter box train.
I think I found your friend. Is her name Ginger?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a Ginger in Tennessee that breeds raccoons as well.
I don't know who that is, but yeah, there's also it might honestly be, I don't know if it's Knoxville or what, but there's like a handful of like exotic mammal breeders in Knoxville too, or like Eastern Tennessee side. But
interesting. Yeah. And for the kinkajou, the permit that you would have to get is a raccoon permit, or does it not require a permit in Tennessee?
For a kinkajou, it doesn't require a permit.
Cool.
For most exotic mammals, it doesn't require a permit. The only like mammals or like really any sort of stuff like that requires a permit in Tennessee is anything that's native. So obviously a raccoon's native. You would have to have a permit to keep one. Same thing with red foxes. Like, she breeds red foxes. You can own a red fox. They smell though. They smell like skunks.
Do they really?
Yeah, it's weird.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they smell like strong of like skunk smell. So most definitely don't keep one of those in your house. But yeah, anything native we need a permit for here. Anything front fang venomous, anything, most rear fang venomous here is actually also banned, which is weird.
Like false water cobras and hognose?
Hognose are fine. You can have hognose here.
They're just too popular.
Yeah, they made an exception for hognose. But you can't have like Boega, no false water cobras, no Barons racers, all that sort of stuff. But I mean, we can have, caiman. We can't have any other crocodilian outside of like cuviers and smooth fronts. We can have venomous lizards. We can have beaded lizards. We can have Gila monsters. Like the laws here are pretty relaxed. And that's part of like why I would potentially stay here. And my family moved here. So like, they followed me here, and I would feel bad if they moved here because of me and I just picked up and moved.
They can follow you to Florida, bro.
I'm telling you, I'm trying to convince them. I have this like weirdly strong urge to move to Florida.
I like the weather, man. I like a nice mild winter. I like a winter that you get a frost maybe 5 or 10 times. And aside from that, there ain't no snow. Dude, I wear basketball shorts 365,
Yep.
Like unless I'm at work, I'm not wearing pants, that's just not happening.
I'm right there with you.
I could never survive in a place where it snows. I just hate it. I hate the gray. I hate I hate cold weather, man.
Yep.
I like heat. I like it to be hot.
Yep. Yeah. Dude, one of the like weirdest things that I miss moving away from like California and even Arizona is like, I haven't seen one damn palm tree in this state. One. Like, I didn't see a palm tree here until In-N-Out moved here and they put their cross palms out in front of the building. I miss palm trees, dude. I love Florida.
Dude, I'm looking out my window right now. There's palm trees everywhere.
I know. You don't know how close I am to just picking up and moving to Florida. Like, I'm really thinking about it.
Dude, you moved to my street, we could live together. Right. We could, I got a gym in my garage. I got a sauna. All right. I got a setup.
You're speaking to me, man. It's might happen. But yeah.
So we touched briefly on heating monitors before, but I want to get to UVB and your thoughts on that. Like, how do you feel? Because I've heard it go both ways, where some people are like, no, if you just supplement, and feed a varied diet, you're good. And I've heard other people, say it's really necessary. I'd like to get your thoughts and opinions on that.
Yeah. I'm of the opinion that it's very necessary. They're a diurnal lizard. A lot of people don't keep them with UVB. I don't think it's right. You see even if it's just from a mental health perspective, like their activity levels and their mood changes under different spectrums of light. You'll often hear someone who moves a monitor outside having their monitor turn super defensive for however long. That's because it can physically see certain things that it couldn't before. Different wavelengths of light can interact with their being in certain ways. And then from a scientific perspective, like, I think they do need it. Their bodies need it to function. They will live a more fulfilling, healthy life if they have it. And even at that, strong UVB. Like, most monitors, even the tropical ones, like intense UVB. Obviously make sure you're doing your research and you're not cooking your animals, but most monitors, they're a diurnal lizard again. I can name, think of 2 species off the top of my head that are even active at night. They're very, very active lizards. They're diurnal. They're spending a lot of time in the sun. They need the UVB to, synthesize certain things as they digest and as they, soak in the vitamins and minerals that they're utilizing in their bodies and whatever. So I won't keep monitors without UVB. So that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's I give it to all my snakes, and I just had Thomas Marriott on, and he was talking about, like you have to do it smart, like you just said, like you don't want to cook your animals. Like
Right.
I guess there's a lot of bearded dragons that are getting like ocular tumors or something because their hot spot isn't hot enough. So they're spending too much time there.
Yep.
And so they're getting too much of the UV from the UV tube, and it's causing damage. So like you need to make sure that the hot spot is legitimately hot. That way they go there, they get what they need, and then they leave it. They're not trying to get as close as possible to it and potentially cause damage.
Yeah, you definitely need to make sure that they can escape whatever. Like, I mean, obviously in an enclosure, variety is key, right? Like if you can provide a pitch black spot in the enclosure for them to retreat to if they choose to do so, and then one that's blasted with heat and UVB if they choose to do so, that's great. Giving them the option to do that. Again, within reason, right? Like you have to understand that a big monitor that's 6 feet long or larger even, one bulb isn't going to cut it as far as heating them properly goes. So they're going to need to sit under that basking spot for way longer. And, that's going to lead to a burn. That's how almost all burns happen in captivity, is usually something like that. So for a large species, you need to make sure you've got 2, 3, even 4 bulbs in a row in one basking spot so they can sit under it for 10 minutes, warm up, and then go about their day. It's about activity levels. It's about being able to heat properly. Like you said, exposure to UVB in more intense, conditions, being able to retreat to lower parts of the enclosure. If you have a solar meter, obviously a huge tool to be able to actually quantify what's going on there. But yeah, giving them variety is for sure important. And honestly, that you had mentioned about the ocular tumors and the bearded dragons. There's also reports of people. I don't know why it's specifically croc monitors that I hear it most commonly happening to, but a lot of people who get croc monitors that are wild caught, specifically ones that are like not babies, like maybe a little older, maybe 2, 3, 6 feet, whatever. And they'll put them under artificial UVB lighting and they'll go blind.
Whoa.
So I don't know if it's intensity or what, but I've heard of that happening too. So again, just understanding that like their basic needs, right? Like understanding that they're going to need to warm up. They're going to need to have whatever it is, hardscape wise, to be able to act normal, and then giving them the tools they need to do that. And then they kind of regulate themselves. So as long as we give them what they need.
Do you ever want to get a croc monitor?
For sure. I almost did recently. It's one of those things where like my biggest cages now wouldn't cut it for a croc.
Yeah.
So I was going to get a juvenile one. And I've got an extra bedroom I could dedicate to that animal if I wanted to. But I went ahead and declined on doing that for now. And then I think I'm going to hold off on croc monitors until a facility of some sort takes place and I can put, massive enclosure in there.
Or maybe, you come down to Florida, you get yourself an outdoor enclosure, and
there's an option right there. That could happen.
Dude, I saw those at Iguanaland at Ty Park's place. And first of all, the enclosures are insane.
Yeah.
Like the height that he has for those animals and just the space. And you walk up and you're looking at this enclosure, and all of a sudden you see this massive monitor laying on this this huge branch,
Yeah.
just totally still. And I've never been able to appreciate their pattern and their beauty until seeing one in person. I've seen so many pictures, videos, right? But like actually seeing one under full spectrum sunlight with all these palm trees around it and foliage, and it's just giving you this intense stare like a velociraptor from inside, this huge enclosure. It was insane, man.
Dude, first of all, Ty does a great job. That place is, I haven't been there yet myself. I'd like to honestly try to go this year or next year.
If you go, you let me know. All right. Cause that's like 30 minutes from my house.
So, yeah, we'll go.
Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, no, a lot of like, I mean, just for reptiles in general, but a lot of monitors, dude, their beauty and their stature and their presence can't be seen or felt until you've seen or felt it in person. Like, you can only portray so much over the camera. Like lace monitors, dude. Like, I've seen some that are legitimately over 7 feet long, and that's not super common. Like my biggest male is about 5.5, 6 foot. And that's more, average. As they get older, they tend to get bigger, but like, you don't realize how big a 7+ foot lace monitor is until you see it right in front of your face. You're like, man, like that's why this is the second biggest lizard in Australia. Actually understanding how big they actually get. But yeah, no, I would like to, wherever I do end up kind of staying and settling down, I would honestly love to open something to the public for people to see a lot of these things in person.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Like I feel like that's the kind of the dream. Like I have a lot of apprehension about that because biosecurity is like a real concern of mine. But at the same time, it's magical being able to share these animals with people. And like I tried shooting like a YouTube video the other day, and I was just like holding my Argentine boa, and I just started ranting about how cool Argentine boas are.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm ever going to post that video. I do a lot of stuff and then I'm like, this is dumb. This is cringy. And then I never do anything with it. But I took her out and I was just kind of showing her, and I got like, so, just fired up. And it was weird. Like just talking to the camera, it felt like I was talking to a person in the room, and like, yeah, even though like it almost sounds like a bizarre state of psychosis, right? Like I'm sitting here like amping myself up about how cool a snake is in front of a camera, but it's like they're so cool. And like the natural history, I think, is what really gets me excited about animals, and just how they're able to adapt to their surroundings and everything. And like, just like the lace monitors, like learning that they lay their eggs in termite mounds and everything. It's like, that's so cool. It's just so neat knowing what they do in nature, and then trying to apply what you can to what they have in captivity is a whole other thing. Do monitors require temperature cycles, or do some of them go through a cooler period, whereas it's not as intensely hot? Do you do that?
Most of them, yes. Certain ones I don't do nearly as drastic. So like I don't have any tree monitors right now, but that's a good example of giving them something that's a little bit cooler without an actual brumation. But anything Australian, most African species usually will have some sort of cycle. Australian monitors, I feel like, are the ones that it happens most commonly with. But the like my lace monitors, I brumated them. I cut their heat entirely. I brought them down into the 60s, and they need that. They can live a really long time if you give them that brumation. Like I heard of a female lace monitor that was laying eggs beyond 20 years old. And like, that's crazy. They can live 30 plus years from what I've heard, if they are taken care of properly and they're given that brumation, because the brumation allows them to completely slow their metabolism basically to nothing, right? And have like a 4 to 6 month break a year. Obviously, in captivity, we're probably not doing a 6 month time frame, but I think I did like 3 months, 4 months. But yeah, no, most monitor species to some degree can benefit from a cooling period, whether it be a more moderate one, like, an Indonesian monitor might get, or a more extreme one, like an Australian or an African species might get.
Damn, maybe if I were to get a monitor, maybe it would actually be smarter for me to get an Australian species that would go through the cooling period so I could keep it outdoors.
Dude.
And it would be a more natural cycle where it could brumate and go down for a period of the year.
Yeah. I would recommend it. Monitors do brumate a little bit differently than like, it's not a hibernation in that they like are asleep that whole time. You know what I mean? Like they are still active. They still might take food here and there. Generally, I don't like to offer food during that time. I will on rare occasions, depending on how the animal's acting, or like depending on how the temperatures are where they're at.
Sure.
If there's a warm day and they're acting hungry or whatever, maybe I'll toss them a very small meal. But they're generally up and about, during their brumation. They're just not eating. Their body weight's maintaining, like stagnant how it is how it's supposed to be. And then their activity levels are lower than normal, but they're generally still out and about. They're still awake.
Wow.
But yeah, now, Australian monitors outside in Florida do great, dude.
Oh, I bet. Now, what about their genetic diversity in captivity being Australian species? Is there sort of a bottleneck there where when you're doing pairings, you have to be very aware of the lineage of the animal? Or
sure.
is it okay? Yeah. Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So, I think honestly, the truth of it is like at this point, we only know so much about what is actually genetically related or not in captivity, as far as really any Australian species goes, or really any species for that matter. Unless it came in recently, it's harder for us to track as time goes on. I'm trying to actually take records of and track my lineage back as far as I possibly can, so that there's some sort of documentation on it. But I will say, like, monitors, at least from what I've seen, are really like they a lot of times will live in similar areas anyways, and inbreeding will happen naturally in the wild to a degree, depending on the species. Like Pilbara rock monitors, for example, they live in rocky outcrops and rock crevices. Kimberly rock monitors are the same way. And they there's no way that inbreeding doesn't occur. Their ranges are more restricted and whatever. And so like in captivity, I was talking to a friend of mine actually about this, because he's been breeding Pilbara rock monitors for over 2 decades now. And he told me, because I asked him about the bloodline thing, I was like, dude, what's up with this? Like, obviously you've been breeding these things for a really long time. What is the deal with that? He's like, honestly, almost every Pilbara rock monitor in captivity stemmed from 2 bloodlines ever.
Wow.
Outside of Australia, obviously. In Australia, they've got more than that. But outside of Australia, he said like he knows of 2 bloodlines that are distinct, and they've been inbred for over 2 decades, and he is not having issues with incubation, no kinks, no weak babies, nothing. And, there's also outside of monitors like anoles, day geckos, a lot of stuff that are smaller. An anole family is going to live on a lot of species. They live on the same tree. They're for generations are living on the same tree, and they're inbreeding constantly. And you don't see genetic deformities with them. All that to say, if you can outcross and you can, not inbreed, that's always going to be a better option, right, for genetic diversity reasons. But Australian stuff, the gene pools are limited, and we have what we have. Australia is probably not opening back up, at least as far as we can tell right now. And obviously, you know, it gets to a point. If we were breeding Australian monitors, or really any species for that matter, but and we were seeing genetic deformities and issues, like, you know, maybe there's an ethical conversation to be had there about don't breed them anymore. Let the species die outside of Australia. If it's not thriving anymore, then why are we still doing it, right? But yeah, generally speaking, even with limited gene pool with Australian monitors, I really haven't seen many issues. And usually when there is issues, it's not because of genetic stuff. It's usually because of some sort of incubation issue.
How so? Like too hot, too cold?
Temperature spikes can do it. Temperature drops are usually not one that will cause a whole lot of issue, but like drastic temperature spikes can cause kinks and deformities in babies. Honestly, I've seen issues with if the female does not nest her eggs properly. I've seen issues with the babies. I don't know why. I don't know if those two are correlated in any way, but more often than not, I guess, I've seen issues with improper nesting leading to either eggs failing to thrive and never hatching to begin with, or babies from those clutches coming out weird in some way. I even had it happen to me. I had one clutch that my yellow-headed water monitor had laid, and for whatever reason, it was the dead of winter. I was still figuring out temperature regulation in the garage. We had just moved to Tennessee, and she laid a clutch of eggs, and I wasn't expecting it. We had just moved. She didn't look gravid. And she laid a clutch of eggs, and she scattered them. She did not use the nest box as she normally would. And I incubated them, and one of the babies, like, first of all, not all the eggs made it to term. 4 eggs total made it to term, and then one of them died at hatching. 2 of them turned out fine, and then one of them came out with one eye that was like totally blue and glazed over, and he was blind in that eye. And that animal also ended up dying.
Damn.
But yeah, usually with monitors, I've seen that the most, like, as far as like not husbandry related issues, I've seen it mostly tied to incubation error.
Now, what are your incubation temperatures?
Most people do 85. Some people go up to 86. I do 84. It makes them incubate for longer, but the babies come out bigger. They come out healthier, and I just prefer that. You know, they come out a little bit stronger. So I choose 84. My buddy Parker's Park, he's a tree monitor breeder. He was actually the first one in the U.S. to breed or like get eggs from and hatch the gold spotted tree monitors, Varanus bomii. He would be a great person to talk to about this sort of stuff too. But he was incubating at 84, and I took after him because, dude, his babies came out super big and healthy. And they just overall seemed to thrive better. So I chose to do 84. But another thing, again, we don't know all the things that we don't know, right? One thing that I found interesting with a lot of Parker's clutches was at 84 degrees, he was hatching a lot of female monitors. And we've never known monitors to be sex determinant at all. And I don't know that they necessarily are, but it for sure piques curiosity, right? Like, you know, they're not like a gecko. They're not like, oh, if you incubate at this temperature, you're going to get all females or all males. Turtles and tortoises are that way too, but he was hatching more females than he was males. And I ran that experiment, and the same has been happening for me so far. I don't have enough data to like say one way or the other, but since dropping from 85 to 84, it seems like more babies in the clutch end up being girls. So,
wow. which is a good thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, even just for the sake of keeping a monitor, especially the larger ones, females stay much smaller. Like size difference between a female lace monitor and a male lace monitor can be like sometimes double the length. Like a male lace monitor will get 7+ feet long, and a female typically will stay around 4 foot.
Damn.
Yeah.
And what about temperament wise?
Lace monitors, like for lace monitors specifically?
Yeah, like are females more chill, or does it not make a difference? But if you wanted to keep one as a pet, would a female be a better bet just because they're a little bit smaller?
Size wise, for sure. Temperament wise, I find that males are generally more easygoing. It's not like that big of a gap though. It's not like this huge disparity. Like males generally are more easygoing in my experience, and it seems like that's probably the experience of a lot of monitor keepers in general, but that's not to say females can't be that way. It's just to say that they are more likely to be more flighty or more untrusting of humans than a male would be. But again, it's not like it's honestly not even that big of a difference that I would recommend one over the other. Like a female lace monitor or a male lace monitor can both be incredible animals.
Yeah. So like with your babies, how are you feeding them when they hatch for like the first year? And does the feeding schedule change as they get older and as their growth slows down and progresses?
For sure. I actually just had a conversation with my buddy about this the other day. So as babies, obviously the prey item is going to differ depending on the species, but as babies, I'm feeding either daily or every other day. For most babies, I'll start them on insects generally. And then for the larger growing species, they obviously hatch out larger as well. So I'll also get them on things like egg and pinky mice and day-old button quail. And, for the water monitors, I'll do silver sides, chopped up silver sides, and kind of get them going on that varied whole prey diet early. But as they grow, for sure, their metabolism slows into adulthood. While they're actually growing to adulthood, it's almost hard to like overfeed a monitor. You can do it for sure. Like make sure you're watching the body composition of your monitor, but while they're actually growing to adulthood, they eat a lot. And then once they get to be adult size and their growth slows dramatically, so does their metabolism. So they don't require nearly as much food to maintain a healthy weight. They love food though. So you got to really watch their body composition, because I've seen so many, overweight monitors. And it drastically shortens their lifespan and makes their health decline very quickly if you get them fat. They're such active lizards, but in captivity, obviously they're not going to get as much activity as they would in the wild. They're not traveling miles a day in captivity, but generally, as they grow to be adult size, then I'll slow down feeding. I don't really feed on a schedule though. That's another thing that I don't know. Sorry, I can't think straight. My dog, Boba, he's sitting there. Okay. Sitting there slurping up food, and I'm like, dude, I can't think. But yeah.
The worst is when they lick their paws and you just hear like the
yep. Like,
and you're like, dude, stop.
Like, bro, it's bad enough when I'm sitting here trying to work. Right now I'm actually filming something. Can you shut up for 2 seconds, please? But no, I mean, generally speaking, as they're growing, I feed a lot, starting again, that like every day, every other day schedule. As adults, I feed based on their body composition. Adults, when they're hungry or when they're deflated, will have visual lateral lines on their sides. And then when they're full, those lines become a little bit less noticeable. You don't necessarily want to feed to the point where they're gone, where they're so big and, plump. That's probably a sign that you fed too much. You don't want a male looking like a gravid female, essentially. You don't want them to have big old food belly. But they, they'll digest certain food items at different rates. I've noticed that quail and chicks, they'll digest pretty quickly. And then something like a mouse is going to take them a little bit longer to digest. They're higher caloric value, and they just take a little bit longer. So I'll feed based on how they look, not necessarily on a schedule.
If you had to quantify it though, like if I was like, Mason, how often do I feed my 4-year-old lace monitor? Or let me pitch it to you this way. If I were to say, hey, I'm going to, I work a busy schedule, so I'm going to feed Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and just adjust the amount of prey items. Would that work? Or is that too infrequent?
No, that works. There's weeks I'll feed them once a week as adults.
Wow.
It just depends on what they eat. Sometimes I'll do every 2-3 days, smaller meals. And some days I'll do slightly larger meals, and I'll do maybe once or twice a week. It just depends on what they eat. Some people will do even longer periods of time without feeding their monitors, depending again on what they eat and the caloric value of it and how long it takes them to digest that and whatever. But yeah, typically, I would say on average for adults, I'm feeding them twice a week.
Okay. So wow, twice a week. That's less than I thought.
Yeah.
So
again, it
like
depends
Monday,
on what they're eating,
Thursday, or something like that would be a good way to do it.
Ish. Yeah. Yeah. They,
Okay.
some people feed their adult monitors every day too. Again, it just depends on what you're feeding them. You got to think in the wild, they're opportunistic feeders, they're scavengers, and their prey size is going to change depending on where they're at and what they're eating. So I kind of like to replicate that uncertain, erratic schedule in captivity.
Mm-hmm.
Some weeks, like I said, I might choose to feed every other day for an adult even, and I might do, rather than, 3, 4, 5 chicks in one sitting, I'll do 1 or 2. And a lot of the food cycling and food, kind of intake changes a lot too, depending on if it's a male, if it's a female, if they're in breeding mode, if they're brumating, if they're coming out of brumation, their appetite goes up like crazy. A cycling female, you're going to want to feed her as much as she'll eat, essentially, until she stops. and then okay, she's ready to go. She's ready to breed. Because they also expend a lot of their energy in egg production, and they completely deplete their bodies of the nutrients that they intake. And you'll notice with female monitors that right after laying, even right before they lay, their tail base sinks in quite a bit. They look really skinny and like fresh wild caught animal that hasn't eaten in 2-3 weeks type skinny right after they lay eggs. So they, they're obviously going to require more food. Some people will even give them like a human grade 500 milligram calcium pill, and they'll stuff it in a chick and
Wow.
give them that. I've never tried that. Or they'll cut it in half or whatever. But yeah, they expend a lot of energy during laying. And so there's no really set way to feed a monitor. It's so dependent on their age, their species, if they're a male or a female, and their, overall condition and how much room they have and how active they are. And that's why I always just say, generally just look at your animal and understand what it looks like when it needs food and when it doesn't. And you'll kind of know when that animal's feeding schedule kind of is.
Yeah, you got to feed the animal in front of you.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, Kara Norris told me that from bloodpythons.com. And ever since she said that, it burned into my brain, where it's like, just look at the animal, okay, it's feeding day. Everybody,
right.
Whatever. It's been 3 weeks. But if you see a snake that looks a bit tubby, then probably doesn't need to eat. Could probably gonna go another week or two,
For sure,
or more. The now I kind of want to circle back. You had mentioned. Well, actually, wait. Before we circle back, what are you feeding? You mentioned quail. You mentioned chicks. You mentioned mice. Are you ever throwing rabbits in there? Pigs? Like do you ever give them something that they really would have to tear and shred apart, or is that just too disgusting and nasty?
I haven't yet, but I know monitor keepers that do. Dude, I know some monitor keepers that have lizards so big that they can swallow a pig whole.
Whoa!
Like, obviously not a big one, but
Yeah, piglet.
But no, it's really good for them, and that's part of something that you can do for like mental stimulation and enrichment is give them a prey item that's a little bit too big for them to swallow whole to where they have to shred it up. It is disgusting.
Yeah,
it's gross. Generally, they're like fairly good about cleaning it up, like making sure they get all the pieces and they eat it all and whatever. But at least mine are. But generally, I'll give them prey that they can swallow whole. It's a lot of chicks and quail. I'll do quail eggs. I'll do chicken eggs. I'll do duck eggs. I'll do them raw. I'll do them hard boiled. I'll do them scrambled. I'll do silver sides, specifically San Francisco Bay brand Sally silver sides, because they're low in thiaminase and they're generally perceived as a healthy feeder fish. Fish is one of those things you really got to make sure that you know what species of fish you're feeding and where it came from.
Are those silver sides actually for human consumption?
They're sold as like predatory fish food.
Okay.
I'm sure you could eat them as a human. They're pretty clean.
Okay.
They're honestly cleaner than some of like the smelt and stuff that you can get at like frozen in a bag at the store to eat for human consumption. But yeah, I'll do a lot of those. I stay away from rats generally because they're fattier and they're like, they take so long to digest. And for a monitor lizard, you're typically not wanting to like give your monitor a super heavy calorically dense meal to where it puts them out for a few days. Like, you're going to probably want to give them something that's going to take them maybe a day or two to digest, and then they poop it out and they're ready for the next thing. Because that's how you, again, one of the ways that you get a fat monitor is if they take forever to digest a massive meal and their activity levels are just completely plummeting. Especially if you're not giving them proper heating. Like, they got to have proper heating. They got to have proper diet. No grocery store food. It's not good enough. But yeah, generally that's kind of what I'm feeding. And then like, I'll give, like, for my yellow-headed water monitor female, she's about 4 feet long. She can swallow a small quail whole, and probably maybe a large quail too, but an extra large quail is too big for her to swallow whole. So I'll give her that, as a enriching meal. I'll give her one extra large quail, and she'll have to tear it open and tear it up to eat it. And it's just stimulating for them. It's something that they would do naturally. But yeah, I'm definitely not opposed to feeding stuff like, pigs, rabbits, like bigger prey items like that. I just personally haven't.
I remember a friend of mine, his dog chased a rabbit, and the rabbit unfortunately unalived itself whilst running. Yeah, it broke its own neck. Yeah, it was pretty wild. So the dog never even got a hold of the rabbit, but he grabbed the rabbit and gutted it real quick and gave it to her.
Yeah.
She was a German Shepherd. Dude, she ate the whole entire thing.
Yeah.
Like it was wild. Like, she just like sat down and just, like held it and like everything, eating the bone. Like, you could hear her chewing the bone and everything. Yeah. And, a lot of people don't realize that like bone is totally safe for dogs to eat.
Yeah.
As long as it's not cooked. It's when it gets cooked and then becomes brittle and splinters. That's when it's a problem.
Yeah. No, we feed our dogs like an incredible diet, and a lot of it includes that like whole, not not necessarily whole prey, but single ingredient sort of, organ meats and different types of toppers and different supplements and, goat's milk and like bone broth and all this sort of stuff for them too. But yeah, I mean, dude, even you can give your dog a whole rabbit just like that, organ meat and all, and they'll love it. Like, obviously within reason, make sure it's a clean feeder, make sure it's, not contaminated in any way, and make sure that, the animal you're feeding is something that can handle what it's eating. But that's another thing too about and it's a huge topic for monitors, but there is nothing that will compare to a whole prey item, like an ethically sourced, good, clean, whole prey item. There's nothing that will compare to it. That is the perfect feeder. Varied diet, whole prey, make sure they're clean, and keep them hot. That's the recipe to keeping a monitor successfully, as far as husbandry is concerned.
And as much space as you can provide.
Yeah. Yeah, as much. I mean, dude, if you give an Ackie a 30-foot enclosure, it'll use every square inch of it. It will.
Or do you think that they're the best pet monitor just because of their small size?
Yes and no. I think generally their care is pretty forgiving. I think that they're a good size. They're not too small to be potentially, crushable by a child or whatever. They're still a decent, heavier bodied, robust lizard. But they're small enough that their caging requirements aren't crazy. Their husbandry is relatively forgiving and relatively easy. They're easy to feed. But there's also a bunch of different monitors that fit that same category. It just depends on what you're looking for. I always tell people the best, I mean, really this applies to any animal that you're going to get, but really the best pet monitor that is for you is the one that you're willing to put in the time and energy into providing for.
Yeah. That
could be an Asian water monitor. That could be an Ackie. That could be a tree monitor. It depends on what you want, and they interact differently, right? There's, you're going to get a slightly different experience between, if you're interacting with an Ackie or a Savannah or a Nile or an Asian water monitor. I mean, even the different subspecies of Asian water monitor can act different, generally disposed or, generally their disposition might be a little bit different. It just depends on what you like and what you can provide for. Obviously you have to make sure that you can provide adequate space and adequate husbandry for anything that you have. So just make sure it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah. That's got to be the most important thing, right? Is and I think, you had touched on it before about moving animals along, and sometimes you get something and I don't know what it is, but maybe the interaction isn't what you anticipated. Maybe you thought oh, they're notoriously, bitey, but I can fix that. I'm talking about my Maclots, but but it's there's certain and again, my Maclots, that was sort of one of those animals where I was I thought I got a pair of them and I thought I was going to be able to do really well. But I think that just with my schedule, it got to be overwhelming where I would take them out and just get bit, and then constricted and then bit and wrapped, and it's I'm sitting there having a panic attack and just thinking dude, this thing's going to get decently sized and I'm not doing a good job with socializing this animal. And I like to be able to hold my animals,
right?
That's important for me. And there was a time where I was working from home and I moved back to field operations. And when that happened, it's a lot more overtime. It's a lot, there's no work from home. Right. So now it's a different chemistry in the snake room, and I moved them on, but yeah, And that kind of makes me, so like, I guess that's my biggest fear with ever getting a monitor is that I wouldn't be able to put that, that time in, that effort, and then I would have the same feeling. And I don't want to, I hate having that feeling where it's like, oh no, I'm not doing my part as a keeper,
For sure. Yeah, no, I mean, monitors, and maybe it's just because I work with them and whatever, but I think that the internet and the industry might make it sound a little bit more difficult to earn a monitor's trust than it actually is. Like, it's a formula for sure. Don't get me wrong. There are some species that, again, are just predisposed to be a little bit more flighty or more bitey or generally less trusting. And that's just, that's the disposition of the species. But generally speaking, like, if you work on their terms and you use food as their main motivator, it can happen pretty quick. Like, and a lot of times, like, dude, like someone like Parker, before Parker started hatching tree monitors, a lot of people looked at tree monitors and said, that's a flighty, look at only kind of lizard. And, maybe only greens are social, or maybe only black trees are social, or whatever it was. There were very few social blue trees and yellow trees out there. But dude, he, like, right out of the egg, he'll hold them for like 30 minutes straight in his hands. And he'll, like, before he puts them into their enclosure. And from that point forward, they all crave his attention. Even when he ships that animal, a tree monitor of all things, he'll ship that animal to somebody else, and right out of the box, that animal is then craving the attention of its new owner. It's not acting flighty. The shipping didn't mess it up. Again, that's not like going to happen every single time, but he is someone that's really, really good about working with them right out of the egg in that capacity, to where, like, he's gotten so good at it that he'll send an animal out and it's exactly the same with their new owner as it was with him. So you can either start with one like that, get it from someone who's working with it right out of the egg, and the socialization aspect is very minimal for the new owner. Or if it's something that you need to put a little bit more work into, like my coming eye, the yellow-headed water monitors, they are a species that's generally a little bit bitier, a little bit snappier. And with them, you have to put in a little bit more work. I've had them sticking their head out of the egg and them try to get me with their bodies still in the egg. It's a wild experience, man. You're going in there trying to get a baby, and then there's like 3 more that are in the egg still, and they're just like, like trying to get me. Yeah, it just depends on what you're looking for and who you get it from and what they're feeding and the care that they're putting into it and the care that you're willing to put into it. Like, but that all being said, again, my initial point, I think that some people make it sound harder than it actually is. Because, like, we're at a point now where it's not out of the question to open the box and already have an animal that is social.
Yeah.
It's just food is their main motivator. Make sure that they're, getting what they need husbandry wise. Because if they're stressed or they're not feeling good or whatever, then that's going to obviously detract from what you're trying to do. Mike's monitors, he made a really good, he calls it the Mike's monitor socialization caging system. That's a really good system for socializing.
Just rolls
monitors.
Right off the tongue.
I know. No, Mike's a great guy. Really, really good guy and good friend of mine. And that caging system works. It's, you can use it for a lot of different monitor species, but I would say it's generally geared towards a water monitor, or some sort of monitor that spends more time aquatically. It's basically a cage with an entirely water bottom, and then masking spots and cork rounds and cork flats and whatever. But he'll drill holes like big, maybe inch, 2 inch, 3 inch holes in the cork, so that a monitor most of the time is going to feel most comfortable in the water. It feels concealed even though it's not. And then anytime that they're trying to hide, they're still not hiding. Like they have a hiding spot to where they feel concealed and whatever, but they can still see you. You can still see them. Your presence basically doesn't, like, they can't escape your presence, but they can also still feel safe with you being present, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So like his system works really well. I've used it before and it works great. There's a lot of tips and tricks depending on the species that whatever person who's getting it wants. And yeah, it's not as hard as some people make it out to be.
So you had mentioned before, just like turning down potential buyers.
Mm-hmm.
What is your vetting process like, and why is it important to actually vet these people before sending them an animal?
For sure. Yeah, I mean, before I sell anything to anyone, for me, first impressions are big. Like if someone hits me up and is asking questions, or it seems serious about whatever they're inquiring on, or like the biggest thing for me, like, is if you are asking me questions and you're trying to learn more and it's not surface level questions, to me that tells me that there's probably good intent behind it. But I like to know, I don't require I'm not like a contract person. I don't require people to sign contracts or any of that sort of stuff, but I like to see enclosure setups. I like to see, good communication from the buyer. I like to see good questions, solid questions that maybe are more geared towards either the individual animal that they're getting or information that they could best get from a breeder, rather than Google searching it. Like if you can search it on Google and it's like very surface level information, to me, that's a red flag. Or like, dude, the amount of people I've had hit me up, if I make a listing for an Ackie, a yellow-headed water monitor, a lace monitor, and a black-headed monitor, 4 completely different species. And somebody sends me a message and goes, "How much are you asking for the monitor?" Which one? First of all. Second of all, if you're asking like a question like that, that tells me that like it's not important enough to you to elaborate on what you're saying. And to me, that's like a huge, like, okay, if this isn't as important to you as it is to me, then it sounds like that might be a situation where the animal might become disposable, and that's not something I'm okay with. So
yeah, especially with these animals, like they're such a long-term commitment.
Yeah. Same thing with big pythons, dude. Like they're another one that's like so commonly passed around in the hobby and will move through multiple different homes because of lackluster situations. And they're another one that is absolutely massive and lives a really long time.
Yeah.
Generally, most reptiles can live a really long time if you give them the proper care too. We're seeing in this day and age, we're seeing lifespans or previously known lifespans of captive reptiles of certain species literally increase to double or more than double because of new advancements in either science or husbandry standards or understanding of that species and how they live naturally. Chameleons used to be what you would get them to live 2-3 years, and that's an average lifespan, and that it is what it is. And now you're seeing panther chameleons that can live, upwards of 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Which did I ask you already? Which monitor you feel is like the best pet monitor? If somebody like, which one is the best suited for captivity and in a just in a person's house that has no intent of breeding?
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I mentioned before, like to me, it's always whatever species you're most willing to put in the effort for. But there's also something to be said about, like, you can ethically provide for an Ackie monitor better than you could a lace monitor for most people. You can ethically provide more space, better husbandry for a smaller growing species than you can a larger growing species, again, in general cases. Obviously, there's people that provide amazing enclosures and amazing situations for giant growing lizards and giant growing snakes. But like, a lot of people will kind of say, like, an Ackie is your best first monitor. And again, they're a great lizard. Even seasoned keepers and breeders enjoy Ackies. They're a lot of fun. But they, there's also several different other species that are similar to, an Ackie that can, hit those same benchmarks that you're looking for. So if you enjoy a Kimberly Rock monitor more than you do an Ackie monitor, get a Kimberly Rock monitor, something like that.
Yeah. It seems like the tree monitors are really gaining popularity in the pet trade. Is that just because of all the captive breeding? Do you think it's because people are figuring out how to socialize them better? Like, what do you think is causing that?
I think it's a lot of different factors for them. They're one, to me, that I've seen, like, really have a big boom. And it's well deserved. They're great animals, especially when they're social. They're really, really good. Like, they're a good medium size. They don't require an insane amount of space, but it's not a small cage either. You can do a lot with their enclosures, make them really, really nice and pretty. Lots of plants. They're a light bodied lizard. They're less likely to shred leaves and destroy a nice planted naturalistic setup. And now that more people are working with them and more of them are being captive bred, people are realizing that, like, they're not these, like, completely antisocial lizards that they were once known to be. They're super fun. They're super social. They have the ability to be incredibly friendly and incredibly interactive. I would say, generally speaking, again, outside of Parker, but generally speaking, they're, like, a little bit more difficult to socialize. Not even necessarily than other species of monitors. They're just higher on the spectrum, I would say. Like, there's ones that are way worse than them. So, is what it is there. But they're a really good size. They're really pretty. They're more commonly available captive bred. The demand is really high for them because a lot of people can ethically provide for them. They're a little bit of a phenomenon. They're like they check a lot of boxes for a lot of people, especially now that they're being more commonly captive bred and people can understand that they can be really social.
What do you think the worst pet monitor is? Like if somebody came to you and they didn't have any experience and they're like, I want to get X, and you're like, don't do that. Like, like, what would that animal be? What would X be?
See, there's a few answers I could put here depending on. The obvious one to me is a crocodile monitor. That's one that I don't necessarily know if a beginner in the monitor world should try to own, just because they're a very well equipped, very capable, large growing lizard. But at the same time, like, I would also put a Savannah monitor in that same spot, because even though they're, like, one of the most commonly available monitors and they're $50 or whatever, their care is different than another African rock monitor species. They require a lot of bugs. They're expensive to feed because they require a lot of bugs. Even as a 4-foot adult, the second you start loading them up with mice, they're going to get fatty liver disease and die. So they need really lean foods. Like we had a Savannah monitor for a long time, and I was feeding him a lot of bugs, a lot of extra large dubia roaches. You can do, Madagascar hissing cockroaches with them. You can do like other big bugs, cave roaches and stuff like that. And then I would do chicks and quail and eggs. Eggs are like a little bit fatty, but I would do a lot of like lighter, less calorically dense birds. Like quail are more calorically dense than chicks are. So I would do more chicks and then a lot of bugs and whatever. But another species I could put there is the Nile monitor. Huge, generally not friendly, unless you really work with them. And another one of those that's like available for $100. Like the amount of, then that's a whole nother discussion too. Like monitors should not be available for that price. They really shouldn't. Yeah. Like from an ethical standpoint, I don't understand why so many just like, whether it be a wholesaler or a shop or individuals that are just buying a bunch of stuff for the sake of selling it at a show or whatever, and just not caring where these 30 baby Savannah monitors go. Like 29 of them are probably going to die because you don't care about where they go. You know what I mean? They're some of the most commonly, improperly cared for, I think, lizards, generally speaking.
Neglected.
That's there's the word I was looking for. I think that's probably the biggest thing. Cause like realistically, if someone's looking to get something like a croc monitor or something that's like huge and expensive, chances are they're probably doing research on it and understanding what exactly they're getting. Because they're investing a lot of money into it. The biggest issue is with a wild-caught Asian water monitor or a wild-caught Nile monitor or a wild-caught Savannah or something that comes in on import super cheap. The barrier to entry is so low that someone who's just like, oh, I want to try out having a monitor lizard, whatever, that has done zero research, that just happens to impulse buy one at a show or a shop or whatever it is, the accessibility is there for that to happen. And that's where the bad situations come up, because then you have someone who either A, kills it, B, keeps it alive, but isn't socializing it. So it's super mean. And then, if it does become super mean and it gets to a decent size, like, that's a gnarly bite from a 4-foot Nile monitor. Yeah. It's a gnarly bite. So, I could go on and on and on about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so it seems like the ones that would make the worst pets are the most common ones in the pet trade that are the least amount of money.
Yep. Yeah. Really, any big lizard is going to have specialized care to a degree. That's just how it is. There in a lot of these lizards, there's not enclosure manufacturers that will make cages big enough for them. That being said, there's a lot of places that'll make like an 844 that you can order online and they'll flat pack it and ship it to your house or whatever, or freight or whatever. But generally, if you have a large lizard, you're going to probably have to build a custom enclosure for it. So you got to understand that you're, capable or okay with doing that. And you need to just realize that these things live a long time with proper care, and you need to be able to handle yourself around a big lizard like that. A accidental bite can be the difference of mobility in your hand or not.
Yeah.
It's not like I messed up. Like it's gonna, there's not even any blood, whatever. It's like if you slip up, you got to make sure that you're being responsible and understand what you're caring for, because they're very well equipped. A lot of these species are the top predators in their environment, and that's what you signed up for. So
yeah. Now, just before we wrap up, I kind of want to, you mentioned Mike's Monitors. Who are some of your mentors? Who are some of the people that you've learned the most from, as you've grown in the hobby?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say that, like, as far as, because I've kept a lot of different species of reptile and have kind of put myself in a lot of different kinds of reptile niches and communities. The monitor community is awesome. Like, so many good people. Everyone loves helping each other. It's, people aren't gatekeeping information or husbandry care, any sort of information regarding that. Everyone wants everyone to be successful. And some of the people that I've really looked up to in my journey of learning more about them and then successfully breeding them has been John Adranya, Sim Container. I talk to John almost every day. Really, really good buddy of mine. He's another like wealth of knowledge for future, podcast guest. But Mike's Monitors, Mike Stefani, he's another one that, same thing. Talk to him frequently, and he's a wealth of knowledge. Alex Monsalve, Cali Coldblood, he's another one that has been really, really helpful for me. Good friend of mine. Brian Waterloo's another one. There's a lot of like really good, like really helpful OG monitor keepers. No one wants anyone to fail, because at the end of the day, like, I think that the general mentality is like, the more willing you are to help someone in caring for their animal, the better off that animal is going to live. Right. So it's less of like I don't like you, I want all your animals to die. Like, in some communities are like that, and it's like crazy to me. The monitor community is very much so like, okay, maybe you impulse bought a Savannah monitor or a Nile monitor at a show, and your care is like totally and completely off, but you care enough to ask how to do it the right way. So I'm going to tell you how to do it the right way, and be kind about it. But yeah, that's like four. What was that for? People that I've considered like very close mentors and have gotten me to where I am today. And I've got a lot of really close friends in the monitor world too. Alec Nigerian and Reptiles. He's one of the biggest lace monitor breeders in the US now. And he's, how old is he now? Because him and I were both racing to be like, potentially the youngest person to hatch out lace monitors in the US. And he beat me for sure. He's hatched them long before I have. But he's, I think, 21 or 22. Him and I.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Him and I are really, really close. We talk almost every day too. Him and I used to live like 25 minutes from each other. I used to, work at his family restaurant, and, like, him and I are really, really close. And then Parker's Park, him and I were roommates for a while. Wealth of knowledge, great tree monitor breeder, very, very detail oriented, down to like every single minor detail about every single lizard he has. Like, he can tell you anything about them. And so he's really good at note taking, really good at little details and noticing. Like, he's really, really good at what he breeds, because the tiniest little changes in behavior or food intake, like the difference between eating 4 dubia roaches and 3, he'll take that and note it down. But yeah, those are 2 really, really great people that I'm close with. Yeah, monitor community is very like accepting. Don't get me wrong, every community has its bad apples, right? But generally, like, everyone is so kind and cares about the animals that we keep and making sure that everyone can be as successful as possible.
Yeah, man. I've had Uncle Mike on, and I've had Nick Lillis on, and
Nick is another great one.
Yeah, Nick is such a great guy. I mean, he sponsored the podcast for a year.
Yeah.
Which was that was so cool, and he just believed in what I'm doing, and it was really cool of him to show support like that. And and Mike is always like reposting my stuff and putting my stuff out there. And yeah, just a very, very kind, charitable group of people, really, really community focused, you know?
Yeah. No, well, and you're, you know, all the praise you're getting, man, is well deserved. Like all the support you're getting, all the praise you're getting is really well deserved. Like you didn't do anything the wrong way. You know what I mean? Like you produce a incredible podcast that is, you know, professional and looks good and has great information, great quality guests, and is helpful to people and is enjoyable to people. And to me, that's like always what I look at in a podcast of like, you know, if someone's doing it the right way or the wrong way is like professionalism. And yours to me is like top tier, like your setup, your camera quality, all that sort of stuff. Like it's all like the little minor things that some people might glaze over and not necessarily pay attention to, but that's like literally the make or break difference of whether or not something is successful or not, is those minor details that, you know, go into making the full production. And I think you pay really, really close attention to that. So props to you for all that as well.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. And, you know, I've been getting a lot of just like DMs and stuff of people telling me why they appreciate the show for different reasons and different topics that are talked about. And it's like really humbling and it makes me, it makes me want to cry sometimes. Like it's because I care about this a lot, and I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary of posting, and I have not missed a single week.
Yeah.
And I do not plan on missing a week like that, you know, and the community has given me, so much just by watching it and enjoying it. Like that's a gift, to be able to give me sort of a sense of purpose. And, you know, something I want to do is I want to give out free Patreon memberships to people that can't afford it. Like if you enjoy the show and you want to be part of the Expert and the Idiot Patreon and the Discord, and you can't afford it, because I understand stuff is expensive and life is difficult and we all are, you know, working hard and everything, like just hit me up and I'd love to do that, you know, because I've been given so much and like I do put a lot into this, but just the sense of community and the friendships that I've gained and the kindness of the people around me and the sponsors and the Patreons and all that. Like I try to give as much as I can in the form of the podcast, but I would love to give more, you know?
No, I feel the same way. It's a community that has poured into me so much that, you know, same situation. You want to give as much back as you can. And I think what you're doing is great. I mean, a podcast to me is like one of the ultimate ways to give back to the community, because, there's just a wealth of knowledge to be shared, and it's a great community, a great place for people to come together and make friends and, you know, talk with people about, you know, what they're interested in, even within the micro niches of the hobby, and be able to connect that way. I think that a podcast is like one of the best ways to do that.
Yeah.
So
information sharing is so important.
For sure.
You know, it's so important to get the information out there. And I think for newer keepers to understand that nobody's doing it the same way, but everybody can be successful. Yep. You know, like there's so many variations from how one keeper, you know, from how Ryan Young keeps compared to Ron St. Pierre, compared to Nick Mutton, compared to Uncle Mike, compared to you, compared to, you know, Stephen Cush. Like everybody's doing it differently.
Right.
But doing it successfully and sharing that information. So that way, maybe if you're struggling in one certain area, you can reach out and grab that little tidbit that could help you care for your animals better in the end, sure. Right? Like that's the whole goal, is that the animals are happier, healthier, living longer lives, right?
Yep. No, absolutely. No, I think I think it's awesome. And I love, like, I'll just, at the end of a work day or something, I'll just sit, on the couch or whatever, maybe turn on the show or play some video games or whatever. And I'll throw on your podcast, or I'll throw on MJ's podcast, or, Mike and Nick's podcast. And like, I just love all of your guys' shows. Like, it's a way to decompress. It's a way to connect. It's a way to learn. So props to you for doing it, and props to you for the consistency too. Like, that's a huge thing. And I know, like, as a content creator myself, who's like totally slacked the past 2 years, I know the dedication that you, like, even just the mental space that you have to be in to be consistent like that, especially with something that, content that you're putting out on a weekly basis that is comprised of like 1, 2, 3, 4 hours worth of content in one go.
Yeah.
I know what that commitment takes. So, like, massive props to you on the consistency, dude. Like, that's the number one thing that you could ever do to grow. A little bit of backstory of, like, I've slacked on my own stuff, but I do editing and marketing and social media management, whatever, for other creators and other businesses and entrepreneurs. And
maybe we can talk after the show.
Yeah, for sure. So my buddy Evan, he's at the guy on Instagram. He started a company called Content Autopilot, and I'm on the editing team. And so we basically, like, will take, someone wants to grow their pages or do whatever, we will script everything for them. We will give them exact things to post on their story. We will give them exact information as to what they need to sell a product, what they need to say and how they need to say it, tone of voice, delivery, everything. And then we will have them film it. They'll send it to me or another one of our editing, editors on the team. And we will put it together, and, they get a script, they film it. We put it together, and they get a completed package of, like, all right, here's your weekly content. There's you post once a day, whatever. And that really, really helps with a lot of people who feel like they don't have the time to pour into that, whether it just be, because obviously they have to physically be there and show up to film, right? But like I told you, like, your consistency, like, I know the mental side of that. Like, that's crazy. So props to you for that.
You know what makes the difference? It's kind of like with keeping the animals, is that I'm passionate about it.
Right.
And like yesterday I was supposed to record with Phil Leitz, and his internet was going out. Dude, it put me into a depression. Like, the fact that I didn't produce yesterday, that I didn't create the content, and that I had, like, all the questions lined up, and we got into it and it was falling apart. And like, I was just like, no, it gave me physical pain. And then additionally, I had some motorcycle parts come in, and I was trying to put them on my bike, and literally nothing fits, and parts are missing. And like, just like, dude, it was just like gut blow. Like, and the bike is on a jack, and like shocks off, and like parts, wires hanging out and everything. And I'm sitting there like, I'm like, life is coming at me pretty hard right now.
Yeah, no kidding.
But you know what the difference is the fact that I love doing this podcast.
Yeah.
It has given me such a huge sense of fulfillment. Like I said, doing reels and everything, I recently found out sort of a recipe that works for me to get views.
Good.
But it's so much harder for me to show up and do it. Like, because it feels grueling, because there's a big part of me that hates social media. And I know. It's like there's part of me that's like, yeah, I know how to get views. I know how to get people to stay and stick around and watch, but I hate it. I hate creating it. I hate, and like, even like that Argentine boa video that I made, I'm like, okay, so now I have a raw file, and I don't want to edit it. Yep. I have no interest in. Yeah, and it's probably never going to go out, even though I'm super passionate in it, and there's probably something there. But like, the energy is, like making a new intro for like an episode that Nick Mutton's going to be on. Like I did that for Nick Mutton Strikes Back, and I had a lot of fun doing that, creating it, making the image and like making the background move and everything. And,
right.
but that's because the passion was there, it was going into the podcast. But then like reels and stuff, it's sometimes it's fun and other times it's just grueling. And then once it's grueling and I don't want to do it anymore.
Yep. No, the reels especially, dude. And that's like the biggest thing with social media, is that consistency. And, if you are not consistent, then you're punished for it by the algorithm. That's any social media platform, by the way. And, if you're not keeping up with the bar that you set for yourself, then that will also punish you. Because like, say your consistency is once a week, 2 times a week, 3 times a week. If you, can post 1, 2, 3 times a week, then great. But post exactly that amount and exactly on the days that are the same, consistent across the board. If you set a goal for yourself to post daily and you post 3, 4 times a week, you're not like the lack of consistency, even within the standard that you set for yourself, the algorithm will pick up on that and it will punish you for it. It's crazy how complex the algorithms have gotten. It's even down to like, Instagram right now is wanting videos that are more than 30 seconds, less than a minute and 30 seconds. That's the time frame that they're going to start pushing, or have been pushing. Used to be that they wanted 8-second videos, They
used to just want pictures, Mason.
Yeah. They pushed carousels for a long time. Now they're stopping pushing carousels.
Yeah.
And same with YouTube Shorts and TikTok and all the different platforms. Like each one has its own, like TikTok right now wants to push long videos. If you post a 10-minute video and it does well, great. They like it. They want that sort of thing. But, keeping up with all the different platforms and, staying consistent on all of it. And like, dude, even like down to like, I'll have a video like edited and put together and I just won't want to post it. I'm like, I gotta write out the caption and I gotta write it, like friggin' schedule it and this and that. And then I gotta post it to my story. And, then I'm like,
it's exhausting.
I know, especially when you're doing it like, like you are with consistency in that way, which is great that you enjoy it. That's super important. So, again, props to you for that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's well, and I kind of have it down to a science now too of like what I need to do X, Y, and Z, and then it goes out to my Patreons, and that's the thing too is like I'm happy. I kind of like fell ass backwards into a system where it was like build up a bank. Those go to Patreons first that, for like 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then it goes out on YouTube, and I have monetization turned off so they can watch it on YouTube, no ads, and just, enjoy it, still get the visuals and everything.
Right.
And that just kind of happened accidentally because when I was going into it, I was like, I'm never going to miss a week. Therefore I need to build up a bank of videos to have so I never miss a week.
Yeah.
Because I view it like, we all have our favorite podcasts. And if all of a sudden an episode doesn't come out for a week and then all of a sudden it's 2 weeks and you're like, what the hell's going on? It's like you have a schedule to go have lunch with a friend and your friend doesn't show up.
Right.
It's what it feels like, because you have like this sort of relationship with hearing this person's voice and you feel like you're part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And now it's like, hey, my buddy's not showing up. How come my buddy's not showing up anymore?
Yeah. Well, I mean, even aside from the dissatisfaction of the viewers that do want consistency, if you do that, the algorithm will punish you for it. Like your videos will stop getting pushed, like they were. And you'll have to rebuild, not to say that they won't ever again, but you know, you have to rebuild that momentum. Like the second you stop, and that's what killed my engagement for sure.
Yeah.
You know, just had some stuff happen in my life, and I just, you know, let social media take a little bit of a back seat, and it totally killed my views. I mean, I was doing millions and millions of views, and then it went from that to, I think my last Instagram post got like 8,000 views or something like that. Which
you're just a common man again.
No, not even that. I've been a common man this whole time. I'm just saying, like, the consistency will change everything for whether it's, you know, it's make or break in a lot of situations. Obviously quality of content super important, and that's like I told you, like, your quality is great. And that's something that, like, if it comes off professional, if it comes off like it was, you know, someone cares about what they're putting out into the world, like, people totally pick up on that. So, and you do that really, really well.
Yeah. I was telling my buddy that, like, relayed some really nice compliments that somebody made about the show. And I told him, I was like, I care a lot, and that's why I do what I do, because I care immensely, and I want to have a better life, you know, like just, and I don't mean that monetarily. I mean, I want to have a better existence. I want to feel like I have a purpose,
right?
You know, beyond just going in, clocking in, doing a job, going home, you know, like I want more fulfillment than that. You know?
No, absolutely. No, that's a huge part of social media too, is like the amount of information we have at the tip of our fingers now is crazy. Like, we can really do anything we want, and build anything we want to build. And so, you know, obviously it shows that you care about this, and you've poured all that energy and effort in. And like what you said about, like, you know, for anyone listening that wants to pursue social media as like something that, you know, could potentially pay the bills one day, or whatever their goals are for doing it, right? Whether it be helping people or whatever. Building up a bank, like you said, is like the best thing you could do for consistency, for sure. Like, just have a stockpile ready, like, for exactly like you said, if you something comes up, you got to miss a week or whatever, at least you still have something to post, so your consistency doesn't fall. So, like, literally everything that you're doing is the right way to do it. And, like, you know, good guy putting out good information, everything working on the back end, good quality. So
thanks,
good stuff, man.
Yeah. And I have kids too. So, you know, we get,
you got extra work.
Dude, we get illnesses that come through this house, and we're out of commission, you know, for like a week and a half, 2 weeks. So it's like, and I knew that. I'm like, hey, next week my kids' toenails could be coming off, you know, like, and that happened. They got, I think it was like hoof and mouth disease or something once. And they had like, lesions and bumps everywhere, and their toenails are coming off, and it was fingernails. It was like I was living, you know, The Fly with Jeff Goldblum. Did you ever see that movie? It's repulsive. No, don't watch it. But it's like, you know, like that. I felt like I was in that. I was like, I want to go back to work now. I just.
That sounds brutal. No thanks.
Kids, man. Kids. All right, dude. Well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing some knowledge, dude.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me.